Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and we are here. We have arrived. Welcome to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru. I may be loud, but we're figuring things out today. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. Did I mention we have arrived? It took a while, longer than you'll ever know. But here he is, the leader of the cult of Cornette, Mr. Jim Cornette.
The second time around. Can you hear me? Can you hear me singing? They couldn't hear us yesterday when I was singing and you were cussing. Brian, I get to brag and boast. You know this better than anybody. I'm not a person who likes to say, I told you so. But in some cases, I have to say, I told you so to certain people many people in my life who have been hounding me saying, oh, you gotta upgrade, you gotta change. I said, change is bad. And every time there's a change, something goes wrong. But finally, I was forced into the change by my old computer that you have browbeaten, and we've cussed the Spectrum, and they were shitty also until we found the fella that fixed that, and then the computer's the shits, and my speed's still not right, and my monitor keeps blacking out. So finally, Hotchkiss Featherbottom came in over here and revamped everything. I got a screen, a monitor that's as big as a drive-in movie screen here. It's so bright I could actually see and read things off of it without having my glasses on, because of the vice-like headphones that you've forced me to wear. And the computer is the most powerful bad boy, and it's a third of the size of the one I had previously, so I've got more foot room. And it's lightning fast, and I can now publicly state that mine is bigger than yours. My speed, he flushed out all the wires over here. He stuck his head in the wall and had a trowel in there just hacking away for the better part of a half an hour at one point. I got to get that drywall fixed. But now he's got my speed. I am 980 over 960 at my highest point. I didn't know they made numbers that high. All to the genius of Hotchkiss Featherbottom. But at the same time, you decided to upgrade, got your new microphone, and all your new fancy Dan programs. Is that what they call them? The programs? The applications?
Software applications.
The software, well, it appeared to be soft. You ought to give that stuff some Viagra, harden it up a little bit. Because we got all this new shit, and we sit down yesterday to do this program, and we got a little ways into it before we realized that all our new shit didn't like each other. And we had to properly introduce it and start over again. And because of that, you have now said, well, if we just upgrade to one more program, what the fuck else are we going to hack into the goddamn, NASA fucking control center to do this program? Now, I know we have a big listenership, Brian, but do we really need to do the whole NASA master control setup to do this program?
The NASA master control? Well, I don't think we have to do the NASA master control. I think we have
we might be talking to people on the moon. That's probably where they're going to start sending people next.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think we have one more little tiny upgrade for your audio, and then we'll be set. We'll be able to roll for a while with that. You won't have to touch anything, think about anything, do anything. You could just be, and everyone can enjoy your being.
I'm being right now. It's just everybody saying, well, you could sound better. Well, I could sound worse too. I could be dead. You're telling me to roll with the changes. You're telling me if you're tired of that same old story, boy, turn some pages. And I'll be here when you're ready to roll with the changes. Well, I'm rolling here with you today, Brian. So which direction are we rolling here on the drive-thru today with our brand new equipment that I guarantee you somebody's going to say, well, I wish they'd go back to the old way they were doing it. It sounded much better.
We still have a little bit of an upgrade for Jim's audio for anyone hearing any issues there, but we are here. We are on the road to WrestleMania. I don't know where we are, but we are on the road here on the drive-thru, and there's so much to talk about. We have a Dynamite review. We have, of course, the usual week of everyone behaving like a maniac, and quotes about you, actually.
I was about to, everybody's pissed off that Tony Khan listens to the program, apparently. But they're pissed at me because he listens. They're like, well, fuck him. Well, what the fuck do I have to, I can't. Do we have to vet our entire listenership? That could take a while going around the globe.
Well, you know, since you opened this topic, why don't we just open with this topic? Let me pull up the actual quotes here because, again...
I didn't mean to take over your program, Brian. I'm a humble public servant here trying to do the best I can to make myself fucking silly and happy today.
Well, I have a quote here. This is a quote from Jimmy Jacobs. Remember Jimmy Jacobs? He was a Ring of Honor wrestler.
I've worked with Jimmy Jacobs many, many times.
Well, he previously had been working for AEW.
He was my producer at the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony 2017.
And how did he do? Easy to work with?
Great, because he said, "Can we go over your speech?" I said, "I don't have one. I got this fucking handwritten, legal pad paper with some bullet points, and I was going to kind of tell stories in the middle of them." And he said, "Don't thank Vince." I said, "I didn't plan on it." He said, "Well, he doesn't like that." I said, "I know. I've been through it 20 years ago." And then I said, "Don't worry. I won't say anything that'll get you fired." And then we chatted about Ring of Honor and went on our way. But he's a nice young man.
I won't do anything to get you fired. You could handle that yourself.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's up to everybody. Everybody's an individual. But I didn't want to take it upon myself, just be greedy or anything.
Well, Jimmy Jacobs was working for AEW. He was Tony Khan's shadow man, body man. He was with him everywhere. And then he was gone, and we saw a lot of finger pointing at that point. People saying he was responsible for this or he wasn't responsible for this. But of course, he's not the overall booker. You could only blame him for so much. Here's a quote from an interview Jimmy Jacobs did with Body Slam, whatever that may be, not the movie, not M. Harry Smilac. "We would drive for hours from one show to the next, and Tony would always be there, talking about wrestling, his vision for AEW, and just soaking in everything. It was a chance to really bond over the things that matter, like how we want to shape the future of wrestling. Tony and I would listen to Jim Cornette's podcast during those drives."
But I see. I'm wanting to be with him because he's talking about listening to the show. But right after you say how we want to shape the future of wrestling, well, I know how I'd like to shape the future of the stock market, but I've got about as much chance of doing that as they do of shaping the future of fucking wrestling. When you think about it, but go ahead. Tony, I don't want, don't want that to go unrecognized.
Tony and I would listen to Jim Cornette's podcast during those drives, and it became a thing. Sometimes we'd agree, sometimes we'd disagree. But what was most important was the passion behind what Cornette said. It was always about respecting the history of wrestling and understanding what makes the business work. Cornette's a polarizing figure, but you can't deny that he knows wrestling. Tony would often ask me, "Do you agree with Jim on this?" It wasn't about agreeing with him necessarily, but more about understanding where he was coming from and applying that knowledge to what we were doing in AEW. So let's stop there, get your general thoughts. The fact that A, they're going town to town, working one show a week. They're going town to town. They're going town to town in the car listening to the podcast. And Tony would literally quiz Jimmy Jacobs. "Do you agree with him on this?" So what are your thoughts?
Well, without knowing a specific, for instance, as Aunt Lola would say, give me a for instance. What would this matter or this topic or whatever, who was with it and who was against it? But I just overall don't see how, if they're listening and just 50% of the time, somebody ought to, on average, right? Unless you're just completely diametrically opposite on opinions of everything, You ought to agree. And then why are they listening if they're diametrically opposite? And I know Jimmy Jacobs has some element of old school philosophy in terms of logic because he's been around for a while and he worked in the evil empire, and you have to develop some of that there. So I don't know, as Tony said, well, I don't agree with any of this. And Jimmy's like, well, I don't want to fucking die on that hill. I don't know what's going on here. But it seems like if they're listening, couldn't something register just in terms of the excess or the unnecessary risks or the self-inflicted wounds, as they say, or just the talent management? I don't know what. Is it the old Steve Allen line where, they say, Mr. Allen, do they get your show in Cleveland? He said, well, they watch it. I'm not sure they get it. What's happening here, Brian? I don't know how to explain it.
Maybe it's that other famous Steve Allen line. Hey, where's my hairpiece? I don't know. I think my question would be, it's not a surprise that Tony listens to the show. And quite frankly, if you pay close attention, it shouldn't be a surprise that things that have been said on this show have found their way onto AEW
into
television.
The presentation.
Yeah. It may not be applied the same way that it was supposed to be, but there have been things said on this show directly have affected things on TV and been things on TV. Knowing he listens to the show, he's driving around with his writers, his main guy, Jimmy Jacobs at that point, listening to the show. That's not the only person who has listened to the show with Tony, I can tell you that. Does it bother you that although they apply certain things said on this show to the television show and have for 4 or 5 years, the big points don't seem to sink in? Or the big issues nothing seems to change Tony's path. It's just that he'll wonder what a booker he admired like you would have done in that situation.
Well, at first it was the mocking stuff, like, when the Cucamonga kids have the fight out in the parking lot, and in the back of the truck is the little stand-up sandwich sign, Outlaw Mud Show, arrow this way or whatever. They're little inside jokes when they first started, and they were full of piss and vinegar. And then more recently, it's become, remember we call it, every once in a while, they're trying to take the constructive criticism. This guy actually sold something, but in the midst of the shitstorm, it was, lost in the shuffle or whatever. They've tried to, an individual talent, I think, tries to up their presentation, as they say, or their game, or certain things they do that potentially we may have called upon. So it's more positive. But overall, as I said a few weeks ago, they've dug themselves such a hole where the people perceive they have no real stars except for the bubble that put them over as stars and have convinced them that they are bigger stars than they are. And the fact that they have numbed the fan base to every angle, possible to be done to human bodies, and endless multiple man chaos over and over in the arenas. So you can't really shoot an angle. So it's just the bad booking has come home to roost. I don't know what else to say.
Well, hopefully Tony, if he's listening, will keep listening and heeding what you say. And apply some of it to his programming, because obviously it's not a secret he needs help. And it's also not a secret that he's pretty stubborn about it and he thinks he knows best. But boy, do they need help right now. It's sad.
Well, but then there is the problem that we've talked about before on a talent roster, but otherwise, who is the help? Which one of these creative geniuses that have his ear, or any others out there? Who is the guy that can come in and stray? Paul Heyman would go, oh my God.
Well, Jim, on the topic of things before the Dynamite review, as we are recording, news keeps breaking. We have a bunch of WWE releases. Let me get your thoughts on these.
Oh,
Sonya Deville has been released.
No.
Yes.
Well, all right, I'm going to argue with you. No, take it back. It can't be. Well, that surprises me because they've used her fairly well whenever, she's been around. She had to take that sabbatical for a while. And, she's got the look, and maybe it just go away and learn a new hold. And how can we miss you if you don't? That type of thing. But that surprises me.
Paul Ellering and the Authors of Pain have been released.
That doesn't surprise me. And I'm not insulting Paul Ellering, but he's a number of years older than I am. I don't know what his age is. I don't think he counted on this as a long-term career. He's probably, he knew it would be a short run, but those two guys, I didn't see what was going on there. And then they stuck him with, what's his fucking name?
Karrion Kross.
There you go. Well, exactly.
And he's still there. He has not been released. He was just on, who's he torturing or harassing on Monday?
Me.
Sammy.
Me,
no, not
because
you.
I was trying to fast forward through him.
He was on there for like a minute. What do you mean? Well, Jim, another release, Cedric Alexander, formerly of the Hurt Business, has been released.
Well, that might not be a bad thing there, because that might be a benefit to Cedric and AEW if he's a former member of the Hurt Business and they would like him to be a current member, since that's the only group they've got that's getting over. But I didn't even realize he was still there, to be honest with you.
And I think a lot of these releases end up kind of being that situation. No disrespect to any of the talent here, but Blair Davenport has been released.
Blair, we hardly knew ye. Wasn't she in a draft of something? She was in the draft the last time they drafted or drifted.
Was she the one who had like the Jamie Hayter old look? Like with the hair, like the black hair with the light streak? The Sputnik Monroe look, I guess, more than Jamie Hayter?
I thought she was the one, Blair Davenport. She was managed by the lady on fucking, oh, goddamn it, this would be hilarious now if I hadn't lost the goddamn TV series. The fucking Blair and the kids.
Oh, the Facts of Life?
Charlotte Ray, the Facts of Life. Yeah, well, see, I'm off my game today. New equipment.
Jim also released Isla Dawn.
Oh, we'll never find out if it is Isla the Dawn. Again, was she in NXT? Where was she? What was happening there?
She was a tag team partner with Alba Fire, wasn't she?
Well, yes, but where was she? Where is she?
SmackDown is where they were. I don't know what's going on now. They were on SmackDown, I think, weren't they?
Well, I don't know. Who's on third?
Well, I can tell you who's not on third. Gallows and Anderson have been released.
Where have they been? Didn't think about them for a while. They've already gone away. Did we miss them?
And that's one of the problems, like with guys like that who have a history with a lot of guys in AEW, and they were there previously, and that was not a great period of time for AEW TV. It would almost hurt AEW, I would think, to bring them in because of the way people perceive them, don't you think?
Well, I mean, right now, Anderson, Anderson is more of a normal-sized human where he wouldn't tower over the entire roster like Andre, where, Gallows would, but they've been back and forth, as you said, and should they explore their Japanese options to just freshen up and work out some kind of new thing instead of trying to look the same as they've looked when we've seen them last? I don't mean looking in the ring, but I mean their gimmick, their presentation. That's the word of the day. Work something new out to get something fresh going before they go to any domestic national television promotion.
Jim, released today as we are recording, Giovanni Vinci.
Oh, I forgot about him. Apparently him not being German just doomed him. I'm sure that.
What happened there?
Because
they brought him back with a new gimmick.
Were aligned with the Germans.
No, but they brought him back with a new gimmick for like 2 weeks. Wasn't it like he came back as like an Italian playboy and then he immediately lost? And then he did it again like the next week? And then we never saw him again. But they re-gimmicked him. He got a new gimmick and they brought him back.
And it didn't work.
We'll see what happens there.
All best wishes to Giovanni.
AEW has announced that they have signed Elijah, formerly Elias.
So he's going to kind of almost be what he was there, but if he was really over as what he was there, wouldn't he still be there?
According to the image I have here, AEW, Elijah is All Elite, and then it has the Ring of Honor logo, so I'm not sure if he'll be playing his songs on the Ring of Honor show that has no television show or for AEW, but that is roster news, Jim.
Well, we wish everyone the best in their present endeavors. I'm not even talking about the future. Who knows? There may be no future. So we wish you the best in your present endeavors.
Well, Jim, on the topic of roster news, let's talk about Asuka. You haven't seen Asuka on TV lately? Have you been following what's been going on with her on social media?
No, I've not been following the Asuka news while I've been following the Rasta news.
And actually, you haven't been following social media. Now that you got the new computer, maybe you'll be a little more up to date with what's happening, but you've kind of been restricted in what you could access.
Well, just it made me mad, so I would just walk off from it before I threw it off the deck. But yes.
On January 29th, Asuka tweeted out, "I've been feeling in danger recently. I've already consulted the police.
The fuck?
At this rate, even if fans approach me at the airport or in the city, I will feel the possibility that something might happen and it will scare me, making me unable to respond." And then she also tweeted out that night, "I absolutely reject any romantic or personal approaches towards me. There is absolutely no possibility for others to interfere in my private life." So let's stop there for a second because there's a little bit more. But obviously, there are issues with female wrestlers and disturbed fans, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, any wrestler, any celebrity has it, but I think specifically...
Well, it might be the nicest way to put it so we don't get kicked off of YouTube or whatever. But what kind of... She's obviously got some, as James Gregory used to say, some nut that's been in some way messages or contact attempts of some kind has scared shit out of her. And hopefully, yes, cops are on, but who, do the cops take some of this shit seriously when you get, a letter in the mail that looks like a fucking ransom note from some 9-year-old or some shit like that? Like, you've seen some of the fucking mail I used to get from fans.
I don't know if that's what she's getting, because again, I don't know if she's getting mail versus actual, DMs or people writing crazy stuff on social media.
Well, whatever, but I'm saying sometimes, I hope the police are on it, but sometimes they don't take it seriously, and it's wrestling or whatever. I hope they're addressing it legitimately.
Well, 2 days after those tweets, she tweeted out, "WWE and TKO are taking action to protect me. I appreciate it." So obviously they take it seriously. And we talked about Sonya Deville earlier. I guess that's the best case. Maybe that's not the best way to put it, but that's the case you look at where a fan literally broke into her house looking to harm her. Mandy Rose, I think, was living there at the time too. And luckily nothing happened, but there are fans that cross boundaries, whether it's at the airport. I mean, I guess the nicest boundary to cross is just the weirdo who wants you to sign everything so they can resell it.
Yeah, which is, that's one type of harassment, but this is a whole nother level.
You're talking about the angry mail you got and people taking it seriously. We have more tweets we'll discuss. What about like crazy fans who fall in love with you, or just in their own head they've imagined they're your wife already, or that you should be with them? I don't know how often you would have had that, but maybe Stan Lane had that happen a lot. I don't know.
Well, no, hold on now, cowboy. It's two different types of things. The anger heat, where they want to get you because you're a heel in the building, or they did in the territory days. That was, yes, you had heat, but it was more instantaneous. There's that son of a bitch. He's right in front of me, going to the ring type of thing. If, some heels had so much heat, people would take swings at him going to the ring, but he was right in front of me. Or he's just fucked my fucking hero. I'm going to take a swing at him. It's more instantaneous because it's anger. It's hard to keep that level of pissed offedness in a fucking fan to where he will go out and plan to reshoot, Targets by Peter Bogdanovich or whatever. So it was more of an instantaneous type of thing. But this, with these guys falling in love with these girls, it's a love thing, sort of like a male-female, John Lennon fucking Sabada guy type of thing, where they're infatuated, and then they begin to imagine some kind of personal relationship or something, or whatever, depending on their level of, so that's that. Not only you can keep that level of heat, whatever if that's the proper way to measure it, and it can grow and grow without these people ever even having met, because it's in their fucking mind.
Well,
that's not good.
On February 7th, Asuka tweeted out again, "There are still people who have romantic feelings for me and are making advances. Please stop immediately." And then someone named Chuck Kun responded, "Not sure if they actually mean it, Asuka, but this has more to do with the whole rejection thing. See, when you make a statement, in this case a romantic conundrum, people will only see that as a challenge. It's screwed up logic, yes, but this is internet culture." And then she responded, and by the way, I don't know if I agree with all that, but then she responded,
I don't even know if I understand all what the fuck Chuck Connors just said.
"If it's only the internet, I don't mind that much." So that would make you think it's something that's maybe happened in person, or maybe it is a letter that she's received or something, as opposed to something over the internet.
Yeah, something's being sent, or somebody's trying to present themselves in some kind of fucking way. And yeah, and this poor girl, again, she's on television. Whether it's the people that believe that, these people on the internet impersonating people on television, "Oh, I want to marry you, send me money," or whether they get in their own minds, "Oh, if only I could meet her so-and-so, then we'd be just wonderful together." It just, that's kind of people you need to be keeping an eye on. Somebody somewhere in the community needs to be notified that those folks are around. And so you would think that there is some way that law enforcement would be able to figure out who is doing whatever they're doing. Can you trace a fucking package? Can you follow a fucking guy? Can you put a security camera up, trace a license plate? I would assume that one of these things could be done. But I'm just a small town bird lawyer. I don't do the detecting, I do the defending.
I also wonder, does she live in Florida like everyone else? Because the Sonya Deville thing happened in Florida. Wasn't there also like a crazy fan that was showing up at the performance center? Didn't someone like shoot up the performance center? Am I thinking?
Yes, well, no, hold on now. Wait a minute. And then they set off a neutron bomb.
And then Harley Race lit the ring on fire.
Yeah, the whole place was in flames. It was on the Orlando News. Let's not, no, they shot I think the police shot the fucking guy. But yes, there was a guy who was showing up at the performance center down there several years ago. People can Google it and get the story told to him by the, news reports better than I can recall it blow by blow. But he was convinced he was going to train there and that he was supposed to be a star. And then he got mad at him because they were fucking him around some kind. This fucking guy? And they called the cops because he was trying to beat on the door or whatever. I think one of the cops ended up shooting him. But nevertheless, yes, he went to court and in jail and other types of unsavory things over that. Again, go out in public, walk down the street and take a good look at the first 10 people you see and then say, do I really trust any of them to come and sit on my back porch? That's my new philosophy.
Well, Jim, one more thing here on the legal beat from, I guess, Florida and wrestling. AEW has fired Bear Boulder, Thomas Wansaw, according to Fightful, an article here
I
by
thought you were going to say Thomas Wang.
according to an article here by Jeremy Lambert of Fightful, Warsaw.
Okay, well, wait a minute.
Wansaw,
Hold on now. I'm waiting with bated breath to find out what you have to do to get fired from AEW. There's only been like fucking 4 recorded instances, and one of them involved physical assault at least. So give it to me there, fella.
This one has an attached affidavit. Wansaw was arrested on January 13th and charged with battery by strangulation.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The victim
Did he fucking front face like Jungle Boy?
The victim has been identified as Wansaw's fiance.
Ugh.
Fightful will be withholding the victim's name from the court documents, as they should, and it has the entire report here. So the team of the Bears, what were they? They were Bear Mountain, or was it? It was him and the other guy, right? The other guy was the one who was a pervert in the ring.
What?
Didn't they have a thing where, remember on TV, the guy was like, "I want to eat your ass," or he yelled something at the other guy?
No.
Yes, it was the Bear guys. Yes, it was.
Warhorse was the guy no, he ruled ass.
He ruled ass.
It was the Bear guy's manager that wanted to eat your ass or something. He ate ass, or I can't remember how he phrased it, but some way or another, he announced to the world that he liked to eat some ass. But these two, they were the 2 fat guys, the Boulder and the Bronson of the Bears.
That's right.
Yeah. They're Bear Country.
Bear Country is what it was, not Bear Mountain.
So this fucking, but remember, they're 2 big giant fat fucks. So this giant 300 and whatever megaton fat fuck was choking his girlfriend or wife or whatever.
Fiance.
Okay. It's somewhere in the middle there then. They were betrothed, but what the fuck with this guy?
My investigation revealed, here's something from the affidavit, on January 13th, I responded to an apartment location, Winter Garden, Florida, in reference to an aggravated battery. Upon arrival, I made contact with several deputies who already had the suspect in custody. I interviewed the victim, who informed me she was physically battered by her fiancé. I observed what appeared several injurious? No, there's an O-N. That's what's...
Okay. Well, and folks, again, for those of you who may not have been as unlucky as me to see a number of police reports about myself and others, they're handwriting it on a fucking metal pad on the scene. So a lot of this shit, you got to read between the lines.
Photographs were taken and uploaded to be attached to the report. According to the victim, she sustained injuries around her neck, including red marks as well as scratches just below her neck, just above her breast. The back of her neck was red also, and appeared it was battered as well. Also sustained a bruise that appeared to be bright red on her right hand. According to the victim, she was in a verbal argument with the Bear guy that escalated into a physical altercation when he pushed her to the ground. He then placed his foot onto her throat, causing her to lose consciousness and black out. Jesus Christ. She stated that she gained consciousness approximately 5 to 10 minutes later and was able to retreat outside to a patio and call 911. She believes he picked her up and placed her on the couch, as this is where she regained consciousness. She said it was not the first time he had been physically violent.
Now, wait a minute. What? She just called 911 and then she regained consciousness?
No.
Back that up.
She's saying that when she regained consciousness, she was on the couch before she ran out to call 911. He just wrote
okay, I see. All right.
And it goes on from there. It sounds like this is not... it sounds like, according to her, this was not the first time it happened. So Bear Boulder, and I guess the team of the Bears will no longer be around. We'll see how they repackage Bear... what's his name? But Bear Boulder, fired from AEW.
Well, you can't even, the size of him, the sheer girth and mass of him in court is fucked. Because you can't stand at his size on some, and do I believe she was unconscious for 10 minutes? No, because if he'd have stood on her throat until she was out to the point where she was out for 10 minutes, her decedents would be, her heirs would be filling out this police report. But you can't sell any jury or any legal system on the idea of this guy this size standing on whatever fucking this girl's throat is for any amount of time, and he's not completely cooked. You can't even make it all. I was just trying to hold her from injuring me, standing on her fucking neck. This will be. Wait till we get the opposing viewpoint from. I wonder who he's going to hire, that Greek guy, Kairos, that fucked up the fucking brain suit because he had none.
Maybe he'll go work for Vince's new company. We'll see what happens. But bye-bye Bear.
Bye-bye Bear.
But Jim, on the topic of more about something in the future, it is around this time where I would usually transition to something, and unfortunately I didn't open any of them up in front of me, so I got to see exactly what I am thinking about right now.
Well, you want me to tell you what you're thinking? I could just tell you what you're thinking, or you could think something.
I'm tired. If you could tell me what I'm thinking, I'm really tired today.
I'll tell you what, folks, if you need, like me, to start thinking about getting into a new business, because maybe there's something like your partner's having a mental breakdown, or they're just upgrading the equipment that you just can't keep up with anymore. If you've got an idea for a product or a service or a dream, because it's America, baby. Ain't that America? You and me, baby. Ain't that America? The home of the free, where you are free to open up your own business, but you need somebody to help you because you can't do it by yourself. And who do you need to get to help you to open up your new business and realize your American dream? Shopify. Because that's what you're going to be hearing when you use the folks at Shopify. They're the professionals, all the big boys. They do the deals with Shopify because nobody does selling better than Shopify. They're the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. They boost conversions up to 50%. Now, I'm not sure what conversions are, but if they can give you half again as many as the next guy, well, fuck yeah. And their people are going to stop abandoning carts. Once they put something in their cart, Shopify puts that little ding ding on, and they got to pay for it whether they change their mind or not. They're stuck with whatever. If they accidentally press that button,
well, no, this isn't.
There's
exactly...
going to be a guy knocking on their door with that thing in a box saying, "Hey, they got their hand out. You're going to get some money."
That's not the way it works. And again, the vendors aren't Shopify. Shopify is working with the vendors to sell you the products, and none of those vendors are going to come to your house asking for money. You're going to pay in advance. You're going to pay the way you pay normally for everything else online. But with Shopify, it'll help you. It'll help your business. Easy process, easy checkout. Shopify.
Well, see, now you've viewed the business and you've viewed the customer there, and you us into the point where we made a U-turn, and I don't think the people understood what you said. Folks, if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are. Whether they're scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. And if you're going to sell more, you got to sell on Shopify. That trademark. So once again, folks, right now we can save you some money, and then Shopify can make you some, because you can upgrade your business and get the same great checkout that all the big boys use, and this platform that has multiple ways for you to just take people's money like you're shoving it into your own pocket, pulling it straight out of theirs. Sign up for a $1 a month trial period right now at shopify.com/JCE. That's all lowercase. Shopify.com/JCE. $1 a month trial period. How can you lose money if you get $1 a month trial period? You only have to sell a piece of bubble gum. What in the world? Unless you're just
you can't just sell someone else's bubble gum.
There's no way you can't make money.
You're gonna make your own bubble gum?
Huh?
You're gonna make your own bubble gum? You're gonna make your own ice? How are you gonna do this?
You could make bubble gum flavored ice or ice flavored bubble gum. See?
What's ice flavored? What the hell would ice flavored be? Just cold?
Well, it depends on what color the ice is.
Oh, come on.
You're one of those city boys. You know about it. Don't drink the yellow snow.
It's just Gatorade.
Anyway, depending on what the Gator has done, you never know. But right now, Shopify, that's the thing you need to do.
That's right. That is indeed the thing you need to do. And Shopify is there for us. It's there for you. It's there for the vendor. It's there for the customer. And it's there for the listener of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru.
They're
more time.
omnipresent. They're there for everyone. They're all around you. Their name used to be Big Brother Incorporated, but they changed it.
Well, we like Shopify over here. One more time, Jim, for anyone looking to sell their goods, anyone looking for easy checkout, Shopify is there. What's that promo code?
Well, if you're looking to sell your goods like a yard sale, I don't know if they want to talk to you. But if you're engaging in an ongoing business enterprise, Shopify.com/JCE.
That's right. And Jim, on the topic of Shopify, perhaps someone at Shopify can host a seminar to teach some of the wrestlers in AEW about selling. Because that may be a lesson they need, but we're going to talk about AEW Dynamite this past week. The outskirts of Atlanta, right? Or was it Atlanta? Is it in Atlanta or right outside of Atlanta?
College Park is, as I recall, unless I'm having a brain fart and thinking of another suburb, it's right in the middle of Metro Atlanta. Well, I don't know about the middle if somebody's going to be, throwing a fucking dart, but it's in the glob. It's inside the loop. So they weren't far. It's just a lot of people didn't want to come. No, I think they sold out the phone booth, didn't they?
Do you think AEW should do Dynamite at center stage?
No.
Why?
Because here, center stage was a great look for TBS when they upgraded from the Techwood Drive studio, and it was close to the office, and it was a great look for Ring of Honor when you've got 800 rabid people and it shoots well. But at this level that AEW is at, and the level, more importantly, that their competitor is at, you can't look like you're shooting TV. Even TNA in the Universal Studios in Orlando, that setup, the Impact Zone. No, it looks like a fucking game show. And unfortunately, AEW started out in the big buildings. It was filling them up, and it looked kind of big league. And then we have spent the past several months saying you got to go smaller buildings, which they have done in large part. And if they can get 2,500 people in half of one of these smaller buildings, or fill up a phone booth, as I said, with 2,500, they still kind of can pull off, this is a real arena, Pinocchio, and we're really a televised professional sport. But if they went down to a center stage setup and doing interviews on the side of the stage, they've admitted they're Ring of Honor with an unlimited fucking budget.
And by the way, you asked, the Gateway Center Arena, College Park, Georgia, February 5th, Wednesday night. According to WrestleTix, the final count, tickets distributed, 2,718.
But is anybody also finding it odd that in every town they go to, big, small these days, not in every one, I don't want to be accused of exaggeration, but in many of these Dynamite towns, tapings, buildings, it's right at about 2,300, 2,500, 2,700 tickets. Where do you ever see in any of the territory days, even towns that were getting the same TV show and the same matches at their live arena, the attendances varied wildly from town to town over the course of the year. So again, I'm wondering, what are tickets distributed and what are tickets sold? And what is, oh God, we got 1,800. We need to get 700 more people to hit the 2,500 people level that we have configured this TV to look so that we can shoot it where it looks like it's full. But if we don't have 2,500, we can't even do that. Is there an element of trying to hit a quota on the crowds, whether they're paid or not? I'm just wondering out loud. But you know me, I'm suspicious of everybody, Brian. Anyway, you want to talk about this TV show?
Let's talk about it. I was going to just say, I'm not sure, but obviously they seem to be at a certain level where they kind of don't go below a certain level. They don't go above a certain level. And that's where they are right now. And a lot of it's because of the TV show. Let's talk about how it started out.
All right. Well, their guys are walking in now, like the other show. And, but then Renee catches Jay White in the back and next to one of the production trucks as he's about to walk into the arena, and he starts doing a promo, and it was starting to get too long for the top of the show, in my opinion. It was Jay White talking. I don't know that he can command the attention of a room or a parking lot. But then suddenly, here comes Dick the Boozer and the Boar Horseman are walking up to menace him. And in effect, Moxley's walking up to menace the guy that's being interviewed by his wife. But then right up behind them are Edge and FTR. And suddenly they just all have a fight. But they, again, still cannot keep a straight face on this thing because they have the sight gag in the front of Marina Shafir just walks over and bends over and picks up Renee and puts her over her shoulder and carries her out of the frame. And you don't see them again. And it's like they're silent movie comedians. They just want a fucking sight gag.
I wish it was silent.
The arena.
I wish it was in silence. That'd be better. Well, it kind of is, actually, now that I think about it.
Oh, yeah, no, we were listening to it all right as well. Into the big door of the back of the arena, and then they did the fight walk where they were kind of fighting and kind of walking because they got to go through the backstage area and get into the arena. And then they have an 8-way fight all over the arena, and they couldn't shoot it all because then they would have to be shooting parts of the arena they couldn't shoot, or they couldn't find these people anyway. And the fans are standing there, and they'll react if somebody takes a big bump, but they've seen this has become the normal thing to come to a live AEW TV show and just see a bunch of fucking people fighting all over the place.
And they don't react. And the fans don't react. And, I said it to you a little bit off air. You look at Raw or SmackDown, the top people being featured. And I hate to even compare the two companies at this point, but Jey Uso, CM Punk, Owen, Zayn, a variety, Drew McIntyre, a variety of people. Nobody's young. Nobody's in their early 30s. No one's even close to it. Yet no one feels stale. And everyone feels fresh. And I know this is a weird thing to say, but if you look at the 5 people I just named, by and large, maybe some guys both wear black, but everyone looks and feels different. The opening of this show was the least marketable amount of wrestlers, or group of wrestlers, you could put out there, despite what Hobbs has as potential. Moxley, he's always in like fucking green or just a white t-shirt, and the rest of his crew dresses the same except Pac, who doesn't wear clothes. And then Cope and FTR, nobody's invested in FTR at this point. FTR's biggest fans aren't invested in them anymore because of the way they've been treated. And also they have a lot to do with that as well. But the way they've been booked has not helped anyone. Same thing with Cope. And beyond that, I just don't think he has the star power outside of WWE that he did or was supposed to have in WWE. So this whole opening thing, everyone was old and slow. This was not good at all. And I said it to you last week with Moxley. This guy's the top heel in the company, trying to murder people, not put them out of action, murder them. He tried to put bags over the head of poor Drano down their throat. He stands in the crowd. He stands in the crowd with Marina Shafir. No one's going after him. No one's even near him. They don't even have to send him out with the security guard anymore. No one goes anywhere near him. There's no heat. This Death Rider stuff has been an utter disaster. And then having them in a feud with Cope and FTR, I'm glad they started the show off with this to get it out of the way. But you want to look at the dichotomy between WWE and AEW, look at these guys versus any top push guy in WWE. These people aren't marketable.
Well, yeah,
this is not appealing.
The point you just made that all those guys, Drew McIntyre and some have not been there for years and years. Like Punk came back and it was off for injury, and a lot of those guys have been there for years. But you're interested now in all the new shit they're doing, and they do seem fresher, and they're not young people, but they're attracting young people. because they're old enough to be good performers, for one thing. But these guys have not even been there as long as some of those guys have been in WWE, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, these people again.
Yeah, and again, LA Knight, I think, is in his early 40s. And he's someone who got to the game pretty late. He doesn't feel old. He doesn't feel stale, unless you just hate, like, you know, you do hear from people that don't like that kind of performer, but the fans love him, and they react to him, and he feels somewhat fresh. Everyone on this thing was wearing, like, fucking dark colors, and, like, no one pops out against the fans. It's just terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible wrestling television. And I've seen more wrestling television than most people. It's terrible wrestling television.
Well, finally, all of these individuals in this big fight got to ringside. And again, and by the way, the signs of the night in this same segment, Boar Horseman and COVID fears Cornette. So at least we got some entertainment out of this segment.
You know, Boar Horseman being held up at any point in the show would be an accomplishment, but holding up while the Boar Horsemen are in the middle of whatever they do, that is a major, major accomplishment. Congratulations, whoever you are.
Yes, congratulations, oh sign fellow. But then Edge speared Claudio, and the heels kind of awkwardly tried to walk off, but Edge did the promo challenging Dick the Boozer for the AEW World Heavyweight title match at Revolution, which is their pay-per-view in March, correct? Whoop-de-ding. And the plumber milks it and then says no and tries to leave again. And I'm thinking, please let him go. And then White gets on the microphone and screams something at him. I have something down here in quotation marks in my notes because I don't know what, between the way he was shrieking and his accent. And then he asked for a tag team match in Australia at Grand Slam or whatever that wing ding is, a Brisbane Brawl. Guess what it is, Brian?
No DQ, anything goes?
Lazy booking. You bet your bippy is what.
Sweet bippy.
You bet your sweet. Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but I've never thought your bippy was particularly sweet. But so it's going to be White and Edge, or Edge and White. I don't know who gets top billing against apparently Claudio and Dick the Boozer in Brisbane at their brawl. Yeah.
This Australia show, we've heard feedback and we've seen feedback that didn't even come to us that's just out on social media. It feels like the Australian fans feel let down.
They're ticked.
And I know people are trying to defend Tony, saying he never promised there was a pay-per-view, and typically Grand Slam has always been a Dynamite. But for it to just be an AEW Collision with no main event matches?
Well, hold on here. I have an email. Would you like me just to report in on what the Australians, our friends down under, are saying about the whole thing?
Yeah, I'm assuming. Yeah, let's hear this.
Well, yeah, you're assuming this is. See, it's real. You can hear it. This is from a fellow in the Australian what is it? De Niro is his name. Certainly not. Robert lives in New York City, doesn't he?
Yeah, Tribeca.
Okay, well, then it's not him, but De Niro. He wrote it. I'm just basically, they're saying it'll be his first, or he's saying it'll be his first live event of any kind for any sport, music, or festival. I was so excited, and lucky me, I live in Brisbane. Not just a house show, not just a TV, but a fucking pay-per-view. It was reported to be a pay-per-view event on announcement, not a special episode of Collision. I convinced a bunch of non-wrestling.
By the way, I don't remember. I'm going to take this person's word for it, but when they announced it, I don't remember off the top of my head if they said it was a pay-per-view or a TV or anything other than we're coming to Australia, so I don't remember.
Well, but here's that. Were you in Australia?
No.
What were they saying over there?
Good day, mate.
Did they even have their story straight? But anyway, he said, I convinced a bunch of non-wrestling friends to come with me and some to fly here. And you probably heard Brisbane. This is worded, well, it's his second language. It's English because he's from Australia. Brisbane in a stadium is a terrible choice, but they've near sold out the new arena, and I, for one, see it as a huge upgrade. All seats are closer, louder, more atmospheric. And apparently, he says, now air-conditioned for this insane Aussie heat. It's the middle of the summer over there. In February in a stadium, it's the summer over there. So they were going to be like, cooking. But here's what he says. I was a little annoyed. There have been next to zero feuds going into this. I was excited to finally get to see story resolutions live. AEW isn't quite known for their fantastic storytelling, but we're happy to get what we can until the recent announcement that the show has been downgraded to a TV taping. From a 4-hour pay-per-view to a 2-hour collision. That's a kick in the balls. Apparently he's saying that he and his friends are hearing that they're going to get the lead on from an NBA All-Star show. So they decided to spit on all of us to grab an opportunity to squish this event into their TV slot to try to grab as many new fans and add revenue as they possibly can. I don't know if they're still going to make any different on that, but basically the fans, they heard they're going to get a giant stadium show, and every big AEW event that we can certainly testify to goes over 4 fucking hours. And then they find, well, then they're moving to this arena. Okay. And now they're an episode of Collision. So they're just now, this is February 15th, and we're talking about the TV show on February 5th, that was, and they're goddamn challenging for and announcing main events on this goddamn stadium show or arena show or Collision taping.
Do you think they're going to boo Tony when he comes out to give his rah-rah speech?
I don't believe Tony needs to go out that particular night. I think he could hand that off to one of his subordinates.
That's never stopped him before, whether Tony needs to do something or not.
I think, well, send somebody with sunglasses and the fucking wig with the curly hair and of his build with his jacket out. And if they make it all the way across the stage without getting dropped by a fucking stray sniper, then Tony could come out. But yeah, so they're not happy down under.
Can't blame them, can you? I mean, we didn't even know what time it started until a week ago. We didn't know how we were going to watch it. We didn't know how we were going to watch it or what time it started or any of the matches. And then we found out about the women's match.
For the last week, I've had shit going on. I haven't really paid close attention. So it is now going to be the Collision for when because the 15th is a Saturday. Or is it before Saturday before it's Saturday here, Saturday when it's Saturday there? Did I clearly and succinctly ask that question?
No, but I somehow knew exactly what you were saying. AEW Grand Slam Australia will be airing. Does it say how it will be airing or where? It will be, well, it doesn't say it on Wikipedia. Let me go to the official AEW page. 5:30 p.m. Australia time. And we have 5 matches here on the page.
Okay, but what time
4 matches,
is it in goddamn Louisville, Kentucky, where I am?
It doesn't say.
And if it's going to be an episode of Collision, it's not going to air live anyway. It's going to if they're following a ball game, what day is it going to still be on the weekend of the 15th? How are they going to broadcast this fucking thing to be an episode of Collision after a ball game emanating from fucking Australia?
And by the way, it's not just a ball game. It's the NBA All-Star game. They will be airing at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time or whenever the All-Star game finishes.
On February 15th.
On February 15th. So again, I mean, you talk about priorities and how you manage things. When Tony announced Australia, he made it out like it was a big deal, and it is a big deal. It isn't anymore. They somehow, before the event even took place, made it so that no one, I shouldn't say no one cares, People are interested now to see how it's going to work out, but he's pissed off the Australian fans. The American fans aren't really pumped up for it. Everything on TV now is revolving around it seems like. Yet no one's really clear on how they're going to watch it. It's a disaster.
And after that takes place, they've got 2 weeks or 3 weeks to turn around and sell their pay-per-view.
Well, Jim.
Continuing. So the next match, the first match on Dynamite was Birdman Ospreay. Good Lord, he reminds me, I think I said this to you yesterday when we were talking about it. He reminds me of the Always Sunny episode where they're dressed like caw when he's got the feathered
Birds of War
entrance robe. The Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey, that's what it was.
Birds of Prey. He's a bird of osprey. And
you made it work.
So then he is supposed to wrestle a member of the Don Callis family, and Don comes out to give this guy the big intro, and the fans chant, "Fuck Don Callis." And they caught the censor unaware because they tried to say that later in the program and they were bleeping him, but they let this go by because it wasn't that loud. But Don announces that Ospreay's mystery opponent that Ospreay is supposed to face from the Don Callis family gets the big build-up, and now it's Mark Davis. And people are, ready. And this is the guy that was the ex-tag team partner of Kyle Felcher. And how did this go again? And again, I think you told me this yesterday, and I swear to God, I can't remember it yet. Felcher didn't turn on him because he was already gone somewhere. Did he get hurt? And then Felcher turned heel, and then Davis came back to get even with him for not calling him while he had diarrhea. I don't fucking know. And then Davis was a babyface, but nobody gave two shits and a fucking taint tickle about him. And then he went away again. Or can you do that better than me?
They were a tag team. They were Aussie Open. They had wrestled a few matches in AEW. And then Mark Davis either got hurt or had a visa issue. I don't even know. But they broke away Fletcher first as a babyface. Was he a babyface? I don't know.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And then he turned on Will Ospreay and he got screwdriver power with Don Callis. Then Mark Davis showed up again dressed like a homeless man. And no one really knew who he was because he wasn't established. And he was upset with Ospreay because he never heard from him. And then he aligned himself with the baby faces. Then he was off TV again. And now he's returned, seemingly as a heel, with the people he was confronting a few weeks ago.
Did his ass used to be the size of Atlanta, Georgia? Because I swear to God, did he go down early and spend a couple days at the Varsity doing an all-you-can-eat hot dog challenge?
Well, he's a bigger guy, but I don't know if I want to...
He's a bigger guy. His fucking ass is as wide as a drive-in movie screen, but it came in handy. Because nobody could possibly care what happened in this match, so I skipped that. But after about 10 minutes or so, Davis hit this flying pile driver where Ospreay was bent over and Davis kind of jumped up and landed on his back and turned in midair and planted him with the pile driver. And it's the goddamnest thing I've ever seen. That could be a finish anywhere in the world in any company. It was fucking beautiful. And because of his big ass and thighs, everything was safe. And he just nailed it perfect. Cover, 2 count. Ospreay kicked out. And then God damn it. And then within, I swear, 15 seconds of this devastating maneuver, Ospreay is up, runs across the ring, hits the only good-looking hidden blade I've ever seen him hit, that back elbow thing, because the guy was standing up and took a hell of a bump and stood on his knees and his shits. And that got a 1, 2, 3. So the best-looking move of the night, Ospreay kicked out of after 2, and then Davis... Well, I think I won't call him a complete idiot because nobody's ever learned him. And we need to learn you. But if you got a move like that, if you're not winning the match, don't do the fucking move. But then there becomes a problem that he probably is never going to win a fucking match in this company. But if you don't win with that thing, you shouldn't. Any old timer would tell you that. But that wasn't all, Brian. Do you have any thoughts so far? Or should I get to them now? They're going to get to the meat of the matter.
Do you have any thoughts in general on the idea, whether here or anywhere else, on a surprise opponent being brought in to lose right away?
Well, I guess I'm just kind of used to it in this environment. It doesn't really make any sense, but yes, there could be obviously an element of it will bring this surprise mystery opponent in. It's a guy from your past, and you conquer that guy, but it furthers your angle within this other guy comes out or whatever. So yes, a mystery guy, surprise guy can be brought in to lose in the right framework, but just has this guy ever fucking won? That's that just to bring a guy that nobody ever cared about to begin with, and he's been there and gone, and as we explained, back and forth and hither and yon, and then they have a good match for 10 minutes, and then he fucking gets beat, and then other people come out and start fighting with each other, and he's forgotten. No, this was just a ratings ploy, a mystery in Tony's mind. He thinks that if you stipulate everything, every match has some incredible implication that we will list to you, and then this guy will face a mystery member of the Don Fallis family and these people in an 8-man tag against so-and-so, with the winner to go on to Wrestle Dream to compete against the Stardom champion of the fucking butt fucking. I don't know. But when you hit people with that much shit, then they tune out and they just watch people fucking bounce off each other. And that's when you lose the ability to create those individual personalities and get the individual guys over, because they're just watching people bounce off each other because they're overwhelmed with this just endless bombard of people bouncing off each other. Am I digressing?
No, and I believe the Stardom champion of butt fucking jumped a Marigold, for the record.
Well, in that case, if you want to get fucked in the ass, go to Marigold.
Or Gleet. Maybe Gleet.
No, that's the noise they make after they've been to Marigold. But anyway, so after this match, Ospreay took the microphone, and at least he kept it brief, bruv. But he brought out his partner at the Grand Slam. It's Kenny. It's Kenny. Here comes Kenny. And Kenny's got the microphone, and they gave him time, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And he came out, as you mentioned, raggedy jeans and an olive green drab T-shirt with some, I was an anime character or something on it. But they look like the people in the fucking stands. And, the people are going to look at the people in the stands to fucking see that. And I won't even belabor the point. Kenny has the least amount of menace or aggression or emotion or intimidation or conviction or anything else in his voice. He just sounds like a computer tech that you might be forced to speak to about your ailing laptop. And it just blasé and wishy-washy, but then here comes Take a Shit and Kyle Felcher out in the entranceway, and they're trying to promote a tag team match at Grand Slam. And that Kenny did try to fire up, but he still just, to me, sounds like a nerd. And then he literally blew the fans a kiss and told everyone good night and bang, and they blew off some pyro. And there's another tag team match that we get to see is Fletcher and Take a Shit and the dream team of Kenny and Willie.
You want to bet that match is going to get a better reaction than Moxley and Claudio versus Jay White and Edge?
Oh, no, I don't want to bet with you on that, but that's like saying you get a bigger reaction for being spit roasted by 2 fucking rhinoceroses or goddamn burned in a pit of boiling oil.
Well, we'll see what happens, and of course, Kenny.
Do they have rhinoceri in Australia?
I don't know if they currently do. It is the land of plenty, so they may have plenty of those. And of course, Kenny always ends his promos or his night with good night and au revoir. What does he say?
He says, mwah.
And I'll see you soon. Get home safe.
Have a pleasant tomorrow. And then bang.
The point is, he's signing off.
That's the sound of the fans shooting themselves in the head.
Well, no, that's Kenny signing off for the night. And a lot of people, when they hear the sign off, they say, hey, it's time for bed. I need a good night's sleep. Maybe some people in AEW could use a good night's sleep instead of staying up all night partying. But I digress. Helix sleep.
Yes, you digress over to Helix, and that's where you need to digress. When you digress yourself at night, folks, you digress, you divest yourself of all of your dressing, and you lay down naked in a bed. You don't want to feel like, wait a minute, I'm exposing my naked human body with all of its frailties and ailments and potential weak points to some unauthorized surface. Because, a lot of these mattress companies, they just don't give a shit. You've heard this, Brian. It's been in the news many times. You'll find, used razor blades and stuff from the city dump that they use to stuff some of the big name mattresses. Occasionally, some junkies leave their hypodermic needles stuck in the middle of it. Because, they get a lot of the labor, some of these big companies, comes from a poor part of Pakistan. So you never know what you're laying on. And that's why our friends at Helix Sleep have taken it upon themselves to save people from sleeping on a surface filled with horrible tetanus-ridden substances and instead get a beautiful night's sleep like you're laying on a fluffy cloud. And again, no matter how you're shaped or figured, whether you're unnaturally tall or morbidly obese or in some way deformed in any stretch of the human experience, Helix Sleep has a mattress that will even make a hideous thing like you comfortable in the privacy of a dark room in your own home by yourself alone where people don't have to look at you. So right now, folks, all you do is you go to helixsleep.com and you take their little quiz where they ask you how and what position you like to sleep and different things that you like to do in your life and what you might be wearing at that particular point in time. And then they're going to send you a mattress, or they're not going to send it to you. You got to buy it first, but then they're going to hook you up with one.
They send it after you buy it. They
send it after you buy it, but you got to buy it, then they send it. It's the buy-send relationship. But they're going to hook you up with one that is all to your preferences, whether you got the snoring, the back pain, the sleep apnea, problems with, as a matter of fact, now they have that new incontinence mattress where if you piss the bed instantly, you get an electric shock to wake you up and let you know to stop doing that shit. But
well, let me just stop you right there. They do not have anything like that, and you do not have to worry about any sort of electrical shocks with Helix Sleep.
Is that still in development? I must be confusing an advance memo. I'm on the board.
You are not on any board. You don't get any memos. Will you stop it? Of course, you have no idea what you're talking about here.
I'm bored right now. Didn't you get the memo? Anyway.
Go to sleep. Helix Sleep.
If you go to helixsleep.com/JCE, we're going to save you money because you're going to get 20% off site-wide and 2 free dream pillows. That's the pillows when you put it on the comfortable mattress, then you lay your head down on the comfortable pillows, and boom, you're going to dream. You're going to be a dream machine floating away on a cloud. Just be careful when you wake up the next morning. Don't go to bed naked because you might have to wander back to your home from some undisclosed location.
What?
Right now, again, if you're dreaming and you're floating, helixsleep.com/JCE.
Yeah.
20% off site-wide and 2 free dream pillows with any mattress purchase. Boy, howdy, that's a deal you just can't beat with a stick.
Well, leave the stick outside and go to bed with Helix Sleep one more time, Jim. We love them here at the house. I know you love them over there at Castle Cornette. What's the promo code?
helixsleep.com/JCE.
Good night.
Well, the night was about to get better over on AEW Dynamite. The only stars they've got were about to come out.
Well, Jim, hold on. If I can give you some breaking news that I'm just noticing online right now, talking about stars, someone that you've always said was a star. I have a tweet here
Uh-oh.
Jeremy Spoken. R.I.P.
Now, wait a minute. I have never said that Jeremy Spoken was a star.
R.I.P. to a radio and Tulsa legend, Roy D. Mercer himself, Brent Douglas. So, Roy D. Mercer, someone you've talked about in the past, the voice of Roy D. Mercer.
Hold on now. Now, we don't even have time, and I'd have to have even some reference material in front of me to say that there's been more than one Roy Mercer. And there's a story behind this, and people can Google it and look it up, but the Roy D. Mercer tapes originated with a guy in East Tennessee that apparently, as I remember the story, was sick, possibly had cancer, and was just calling people up, jacking them around. And then they found their way to some radio station people, and then somebody became a new, or maybe there was a different middle initial Roy Mercer. And then they started selling commercial tapes and everything. It's a whole saga, Brian. So we don't know exactly. I think this is one of the pretenders, not the original fella that was the first one to ask about how big a boy is he? Or what time does your brother get off? Things like that.
This is a weird situation right now where, we want to say something nice about someone who passed, but you're kind of putting him in the, that's not Gorgeous George.
I don't know. I think
that's not the Gorgeous George I saw on TV. Who's that?
I think this was Gorgeous George Grant. I'm just telling you.
All right. Well, rest in peace, Curly Joe. But let's get back to Dynamite.
Well, getting back to Dynamite, here came the Hurt Syndicate. And now they come out. They've got the suits. They got the sunglasses. They got the tag team belts. The manager's carrying a cane. They're full-grown adult males. They look fucking great. And MVP, as the announcer, gives the big introduction to Shelton and to Bobby, and each one of them gets a big pop, and the new tag team champions gets a big pop. And the fans have started chanting, "We hurt people. We hurt people." That's an odd rhythm. However they were doing it. And MVP cut a promo, putting everybody on notice, because if you have any championships or anything that we want, eventually we're coming to see you. And, boom, as we get, then of course the lights go out and music starts playing, but the fans are with them because they've acted like, looked like, and been treated like stars.
Yes, I can't disagree with anything. I mean, the reaction from the fans is the biggest thing, because for a fan base sick of former WWE guys and older guys, and these guys all fit into both of those categories, they don't feel as tired and lame as everyone else. And the reactions keep growing. Again, this is a new lease on life for Shelton Benjamin altogether. Obviously, Tony treats him with a lot more respect than Triple H or Vince McMahon or whoever did. And I think it's been a good run so far. And they really haven't had a good feud or anything yet. It's all just been establishing them. Now you got to go somewhere.
Well, and now the lights go out and the music plays, and here come the Gun Boys. And you know what? This might not be bad, because the Guns, we've always said they're incredibly hard workers, and they were naturally animated especially early on, before they got lost in the shuffle, have been gone or hurt or whatever the fuck's been going on. But they take big bumps, they work hard, they scramble across the ring, they put a little extra into it, and they can learn from both Shelton from all three, Shelton, Bobby, and MVP, but Shelton, Bobby in the ring, if they listen and follow and have that natural youthful enthusiasm channeled properly, these could be some good matches. But the Guns came in and they said, "We want to come in and talk business. You're a businessman." And MVP invited them in. And the Guns deal it. They want their belts from 2 years ago back. And they cut the promo, and the Guns need to be the heels in this, because they're going to be, whether they like it or not. but at the same time, it's going to be kind of interesting because you don't want the Hurt Syndicate to be put in a position of, selling like Ricky Morton. So they've still got to be strong in this as their heelish selves, because that's why the people like them. But MVP said he appreciated the moxie and the courage, but he respects their father, or they would have already been choked out. But he shook their hands and said, next week we'll defend the tag team title against a couple of ass boys. And then the Guns, as the Hurt Syndicate had already left the ring, said something that got bleeped, and I got 2 words for you, suck it.
Yeah, what did they say?
But I don't know, because they didn't bleep like the old days. They did the audio scramble where it just... But he said something about, possibly did he say, you're fucking right, we're the ass boys? I don't know.
That was a good line, though. When MVP walked out after calling them the ass boys, that disrespect.
Yeah.
It set them up. I mean, they're set up to be baby faces. I don't know if they'll get that reaction, but they're set up for it for the first time.
I got to be honest with you. I think if they were heels, because they've got that those smart ass expressions and that smart ass kind of promo delivery. And if they were heels against the Hurt Syndicate, we might actually have some tear down the house reactions one way or the other, whereas that might be split at best. But nevertheless,
well, the other issue,
it'll be interesting.
Well, the bigger issue even than the reaction, and like you just said, it'll be very interesting, because even if they're baby faces and the Hurt Syndicate are the heels, even though they're cheered heels, that kind of match will be a little different for them. But they're going to the match next week. Like, they're not giving the Guns like a week to shine on TV and look really good. It's boom, they're back. They get the challenge. So now next week, one of them has to lose already.
Oh, well, the Guns are not going to win the belts, or elsewise.
And I'm not saying they should, but maybe they should not go to the match right away is my point.
But yeah, well, no, I mean, I'm interested to see the match, but I don't think this is going to be a long program, because obviously then they wouldn't just say, hey, we want a match, okay, and have it next week. This is something, I guess, to build. The Hurt Syndicates had their resume, but of course it's all rushed. But what are you going to do?
But you need
what are you going to do?
You need a tag team division. And for the new freshness you're getting with the Hurt Syndicate, to have the Guns all of a sudden in there, that does liven it up. They've been gone a while. Every other tag team feels either makeshift, like 2 guys thrown together, or just a team that you know is not going to win. That's why I just wouldn't have gone to it next week. I would have given the Guns, even if they're not going to win the belts. I'm not saying they have to win the belts. I'm just saying they should look like a team that could beat someone before they get a chance to get killed by Shelton and Lashley.
Well, that makes way too much sense. You know what they ought to have had, though? Also, they missed an opportunity here. When the Hurt Syndicate came out, they should have come through velvet ropes operated by Private Party, is now dressed as security guards.
Oh, yeah, where are they?
Dinner, sir.
I already forgot about Private Party. Where are they now?
Well, so did everybody else. They came off looking like fucking grade schoolers against these giants, because they're green and nobody ever fucking developed them.
Does Billy Gunn need to be in the corner of his kids to offset it? Well, no. MVP's never in the corner. MVP's on the commentary usually, right?
Well, if they want to stretch this out over a few matches, and they would have Billy Gunn offset MVP because he did make the mention that he respected their father, blah, 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 that might be something. But I think at this point, for the same reason, I think that, well, it's too late now, but the Acclaim needed to get away from Billy Gunn. I think the Ass Boys need to get away, because what's left of the fans they had when Billy and the Acclaimed were the most popular people in town, they're still going to fucking cheer for Billy Gunn more than anybody, because he's out there 60 years old, looks like goddamn Apollo. And so I think they need to... Billy overshadows all these other guys. He's bigger than everybody and looks better physically than everybody. He can still work better than most of them. I'd stay away from it. Harley Cameron's puppet. Harley came out with the puppet of Mercedes Moon. And she is doing it. And then then you see Harley and she's throwing her voice, and then Mercedes came out with her 4 belts. So you've got Renee Moxley Good stepped aside when Mercedes came in wearing 4 title belts that together weigh more than she does, while Harley Cameron was operating a fucking puppet, and I thought that I was on acid. That's what happened next.
I think the puppet's more over than the real Mercedes. And she's a better promo. She's more realistic.
I was about to say she can do a promo, but she could probably work better. And people would be more forgiving if her hair fell off.
Harley Cameron's really entertaining and really talented, and she just doesn't belong at AEW. There has to be a better way to utilize that talent. I know vaudeville's not a thing. You can't just say, like, get on the bus, go. But there has to, she has the ability to put together like a real, I hate to use the word dynamite. I was going to say a real dynamite act, but a real spectacular act.
She could be Boffo.
I don't know. She would have been on Ed Sullivan if Ed were alive today here in 2025. If Ed Sullivan took over Sunday nights from the dead, I think Harley Cameron would be one of his first guests.
If Ed Sullivan was alive today, I'm going to say he'd be about 120 years old, wouldn't he?
That's going to be an interesting reaction in Australia. Harley Cameron, hometown girl, against Mercedes Moné. Does she bring the puppet to the ring? Should the puppet now be like her Mr. Sacco? Where she can have different puppets that attack the wrestlers?
I think they should set 2 rings side by side and have Tony Storm and Maria May going in one and Mercedes and Harley going in the other one so we can get it over in the same amount of time. How about that?
Well, I want to hear your thoughts on that segment when we get to it, but Harley Cameron and her puppets.
Yeah, the whole thing there with the puppets. And then Hangnail Page doesn't regret crippling Christopher Daniels. Remember, we thought, well, is this the first time anybody was ever shamed into turning babyface? But now he cut the promo with Renee that he doesn't regret it. He did what he had to do. And then suddenly, Max Caster is sitting in a chair off camera. And just you hear this voice, hey, Renee, can y'all hurry up? And what the fuck? And the camera wides out. I've been waiting here. And hey, he starts talking to Paige. He said, Paige, if you hurt Bowens or put Billy Gunn in the hospital, that'd be great too. I wouldn't mind. And then Paige, who we just thought wasn't being shamed into being a babyface, said, well, how about if I fight you and I put you in a fucking hospital? And they both did some comedy with Caster running off and Paige taking off after him, and that was the end of that for them.
No, it wasn't.
Well, I said for then. But it just... So then we had Brody and Buddy, the Hounds of Hell. Wouldn't the names of the Hounds of Hell be like fucking Satan and Beelzebub instead of Buddy and Brody?
You have a good point. The name Buddy has never worked for him. It worked for Buddy Rogers, Buddy Colt, Buddy Austin, Buddy Landell.
Buddy Landell.
It doesn't work for Buddy Matthews / Murphy.
It didn't do too good for Buddy Diamond either. And Brody King he's named Brody because he's a big guy with long dark hair and probably at one point had a beard and a woof. Looks like Bruiser Brody. But God, if they're going to be instead of the House of Blech, they're the Hounds of Hell. Can we get a full paint job? And they wrestled Felcher and Take-A-Shit. And again, who are the heels? But the fans have nominally decided that the Hounds were the baby faces here. But you've got your choice of the baby faces are the people from Hell or the henchmen of the evil manager. And I'm thinking, why beat the Hounds of Hell in their first TV match? The leader of their failed former group bailed on the company, and they do videos to say that they're repackaged and carrying on, and they come in and lose the first time that you see them as a team again on the main television program. Help me.
There is no explanation for this. They're a team that, I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but they are a team that needs more wins because they've had no wins. And they need tag teams. Fletcher and Takeshita, I brought up makeshift tag teams before. I mean, they're part of the Callis family, but they're both singles wrestlers. One's a singles champion, and they're having a tag team match in Australia, but beyond that, they're not a regular tag team. I mean, it's not Triple H beating the tag team champions on Raw or whatever they used to do. But still, if one tag team's a priority, why beat them right now, right away by a team that's going away after that match? Or they're not going to be a steady tag team.
Well, the match was an indie tag match, but there's talent here. If it was being booked and produced properly with clear direction in both of those things, clearly defined roles, personalities that click. So random observations real quick, and then we'll get to the fucking mess it all turned into. I think Buddy, again, is one of the 4 or 5 best in-ring guys in the company for athletic performance and execution. And his physically looks fantastic. He's got that fucking caveman aggression type face. Kyle is close. He needs to pick a good look and stick with it. I think they fucked up when they shaved his head. At least with that mop of blonde hair, he stood out. Our boy Take there, I don't know. He looked cooler a year ago in the black trench coat and the sunglasses, and he was doing some things, and now he's here, he's gone. He hadn't developed. Brody King wasn't even bad here, and he looks like he's trying to get a tan. And, you know, the fans liked the match, but finally, Brody gave Buddy a blasé, nonchalant, cold tag, and Buddy made a great comeback, and fans got with it. And Buddy hit a flip dive over the top on both of them, and then hit the Meteora on Kyle, which looked incredible, even in slow motion. And the people were chanting, "This is awesome." But then the problem was, here they continued to go. Because the problem now is both Brody and Take a Shit weren't even visible in and around the ring forever. Like they had been taken out by hidden guerrilla warfare in the jungle. And Buddy goes to the top, and Take comes up to the apron, and Buddy kicks him back off, but they play Okada's music on the screen, which distracts Buddy, but Okada doesn't come out, and then Kyle stopped him, but Buddy came out of it. That spot killed the momentum, confused the people. It was stupid. It hurt the fucking match. Then Buddy tags Brody back in. They had it going with Matthews' comeback, but they got to get fancy, and they're throwing a bunch of bells and whistles, and they lost it. And then they double teamed Kyle, but Take saved him by doing a missile drop kick on Buddy, but landing flat of his back on Brody's back while he was covering Kyle, so he killed his own partner. Because that was the guy underneath all that shit. And it looked stiff, too. And then they did some goofy stuff on the apron and some false finishes back and forth. And finally, the heels double teamed Brody and gave him a double brain buster. 1, 2, 3. If they'd have done Buddy's comeback, tag Brody in and just do what double brain buster, whatever, 3 minutes before that, they might have blown the roof off the fucking place. What'd you think?
I've liked Brody King a little more than you. And Buddy Matthews is really good. That's undeniable. And I really like Fletcher and Takeshita. I thought it was good. I thought it was misbooked. You know, I'm not trying to take anything away from the wrestlers except for maybe, unless Tony told them, hey, don't go to the finish there. Wait a while and then go to it over here. You know, that's the wrestler's fault. But other than that, I think everyone's good. The problem is, how does it help the Hounds of Hell, who you're now reestablishing as a new thing? They got a promo video. This is their match. They lose. And then right away, Buddy's getting a match against Okada. You think he's going to win that? You think Okada's going to lose to Buddy? So, I mean, it doesn't really help these two guys who, I'm not saying they're the most marketable guys in the world, but I think they're a whole lot more marketable than a lot of other people there. There's a lot of people on this show that belong on Collision. I mean that as an insult. And then there's a lot of stuff that's been on Collision that should be on this show. These guys are ready to be repackaged as the Hounds of Hell and do something. They immediately lose. So, I don't know what to say. It was a good match. That was baffling from a booking perspective, so it's hard to ignore that.
Why do you build me up, buttercup baby, just to bury me and beat me some more?
This may be a good time in the show to talk about this match. Did you hear the latest Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez argument?
Oh, are they fighting again? I hate it. Somebody needs to regulate Dave's medicine. Because he wouldn't get cranky. Then maybe it's his blood sugar. Or could be he needs some Metamucil. What are they arguing about now?
Well, they're arguing about this match. So let's go to this. The Meltzer Says What Twitter account, which follows Dave Meltzer all around the country, or specifically at home, I guess. And they pay attention to what's going on there. Here is from Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer discussing the Hounds of Hell versus Takeshita and Fletcher. Wrestling Observer Radio, February 6th. We'll stop it along the way.
Then we had Takeshita and Fletcher versus the Hounds of Hell. And
it's a hell of a match.
This was quite a great match.
It's a hell of a match.
But I thought they had a few near falls too many. Because at the end of the day, Takeshita and Fletcher are facing the two biggest baby faces on the roster at Grand Slam.
Yeah, but they didn't want to. They.
I know they never want to beat the Hounds of Hell, but you know what? Sometimes you got to beat people. We just were talking about that.
They did beat them.
I know, but they're hitting all of their moves, and these guys keep kicking out of everything that they've got.
But they still lost.
And finally, we had a
combo
brainbuster.
I actually thought that that they did the best.
I know you're going to put this over. I know you like this stuff. I don't like it. Sometimes it's time to get over a team. And not the other team.
But this is not one of those times. This is the time where you have to get over both teams.
No.
The Hounds of Hell they're just getting started.
Then they should face somebody else and get over.
Well,
Takeshita and Fletcher
are
going to Australia in 2 weeks against Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega, the dream team. Okay?
They won.
Yes, after not being able to beat them with one near fall after another. And you could even hear the crowd. They had a spot at the end where there was Takeshita rakes Buddy's eyes. Fletcher hits him with the draping DDT. They go for the cover. Brody kicks out. And you can hear the crowd okay, he kicked out of that one. And then they do another one. And they do another one. And then finally they hit that combo Braden Butt. And you can listen to the crowd. You can hear the crowd hit a peak. And then they kicked out of one too many near falls, and they lost the crowd.
I'll have to watch.
Go watch it again. I'm telling you.
I certainly did not see it that way.
Well, you can watch it again, and you will see.
And I mean, the thing also is again, it's this was they wanted to give those guys a win over somebody credible, but they didn't want to. Look, they won. That's all that matters at the end of the day. They got the win. In WWE, they would have done it the same way.
No. It would have been much more dominant. If Jey Uso is going for the title, he is not going to go there and go. That's the story, though, Dave. That's the story.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord.
All right, we're going to stop it there for a moment. We have more audio to play, but what are your initial thoughts? Again, Alvarez makes a lot of sense. He still won't say anything bad about Chris Jericho or Britt Baker, but otherwise, he's come around on a lot of these things. Dave still has his feet in the ground, his head in the ground. I'm not exactly sure, but what are your thoughts?
I think he's doubled over and both ends are in the ground. He won't get off, but it was a great match. It doesn't matter. But Alvarez is looking at the other side of the coin that we were looking at. How does it help the Hounds of Hell to come back in and get beat when they've just been repackaged? But from the other side of the coin, he's right. Old Kenny and Willie are apparently they're two premier baby faces that they want to try to push in that spot. So they are, and they should be beating people in quick and dominant fashion, coming up on a big show where they're against the evil heel manager's two fucking henchmen. It's the same way on the other side of the mirror of looking at the thing. That's why we were saying, for a variety of reasons, it didn't make any sense to have this fucking match. But Dave will not get off. Well, they did beat him. Yeah, after they pulled out a goddamn bazooka. But it was a great match. But it doesn't. Sometimes the match doesn't need to be great. They need to have a great match that people paid to see in I started to say the stadium, in the downsized arena. You know what? Some company named Downsizing ought to buy arena naming rights, and we could be the downsized arena.
Who the hell names their company Downsizing?
Well, people that want to fucking make more money.
What? All right, well,
get rid of all those extraneous expenses.
I'll tell you who's not downsizing. Tony Khan. Let's go back to this discussion. Brian Alvarez, Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Radio, about the match we just reviewed, the Hounds of Hell versus the Callis family.
Okay, what about Sami Zayn and CM Punk? Sami Zayn got all kinds of offense on CM Punk.
Are the Hounds of Hell going to beat
all kinds of
and Fletcher at All In? If they're not, it's not the same as Jay and Gunther.
Okay,
because that's the story, that he can't
what did I say
beat
about
the guy.
What is the story? Sami Zayn and Punk. Sami Zayn and Punk.
Yeah,
okay.
Punk beat him.
He did beat him.
Decisively, clean.
Right, clean. After how many near falls?
They did not kick out of this many.
Maybe not. They did all kinds of near falls in that match. They did all kinds of close calls. Yes.
But when that match was over, Punk was clearly the better man.
Yes.
Punk was the guy you were like, yeah, I should get the shot.
And Fletcher and Takeshi are heels, so they have to show more vulnerability. And at the end, they won.
I didn't like it.
Okay. I grew up on Stevens and Patterson.
I thought the match was great, I thought there were too many near falls there.
I grew up on
Stevens and Patterson
card. They did.
That's fine. I grew up on 1970.
Hold on, that's what they did? Stevens and Patterson kicked out of nonstop near falls?
Well, yeah, body slams. Not fucking super pile drivers from the balcony.
Yeah, no DDT off the top rope on Ray Stevens ever. Hold on, let's go back to this.
But this is today. We got to make stars. We have to make stars.
Who's we?
Well, he's taking the viewpoint of the company that he's fictitiously running now.
To make guys that are at another level than other guys. That's what we have to do.
Okay,
otherwise, we're not going to have stars.
Guess what? Who's wrestling Okada?
Who is wrestling? Buddy? Yeah, Buddy's wrestling Okada.
So he has to be protected.
Okay, so put him in another match.
They decided to make an exciting match.
I know they did. That's my point. That was a mistake. If you want to protect two teams, have them each do different matches. We have 220 guys on the roster. Don't tell me there's not another team that Takeshi and Fletcher could beat that's a named team. Don't tell me there's not another team that Hounds of Hell could beat.
Okay,
or Buddy, because there is.
Okay, but guess what? They also did the spot with the fake Okada spot in the match. If you don't have Buddy...
Oh, that one even made me more angry. I wish you had to mention that. Oh, my God. So they're doing this match, and they're like halfway through, and Buddy goes up top, and they hit Okada's music, okay? They hit his music in the middle of this match. So Buddy gets distracted, and he's looking to the back, like, where is...
Oh, and that's the end of that clip. Let's go to the next one. This is the last one from this.
Well, yeah, and nothing happens.
Cut off.
Yeah.
And then he gets the heat back again.
Yeah.
And they just kept going. And I was like, what did we do that spot for? What was the point? It didn't cost him the match. He got the heat right back afterwards.
To set up Okada and Buddy.
Hey, stop it here, Brian. Because this is the problem. We know that Uncle Dave gives quite considerate counsel to Tony Khan. They think because their minds operate on the same wavelength, shall we say, that you have to tie everything into everything, and they couldn't have had that match unless that the tease of the upcoming Okada and Buddy epic encounter was included. Even though it was a screen door on a submarine and it got in the fucking way of everything, it had to be in there, and Dave sees that the same way. That's because their minds work in a very technical fashion.
Well, the other thing is, how did it build up the match? Again, it's one thing if Okada interfered and then Buddy was pinned, although he's eating a pin. he has a reason to be mad at Okada, and he's an imposing-looking guy. Again, we're talking about how this match didn't build up the Hounds of Hell. We didn't even talk about the fact it does really nothing to build up Okada and Buddy, which is, I guess, a feud centered around the fact that Buddy called Okada a bitch.
Well, yeah, but that's what, again, Tony thinks, oh, we got to remind him about that. And he'll throw it in, whether it fits or not. And it didn't matter. And Dave thinks the same way.
Well, that's the problem. Dave justifies the way Dave never flat out says the truth or calls out Tony Khan. He also will excuse things or justify them. Let's go back to this.
It's to remind people Okada and Buddy are doing a match in 10 days.
We just saw an interview 5 minutes earlier.
So that's more to add to it.
If the music or Okada would have cost him the match, then fine, okay?
Right.
That makes sense.
Well,
but like,
they didn't want to
they
do it
did
that way.
music, and then it led to nothing. It was just something in the middle of the match that led to nothing.
It's part of the deal of Don Callis being really smart. Don Callis, came up with something to help his team. They didn't win the match with it, but it was a spot in there. It's part. Don Callis, is there anything wrong with making the evil manager
but
really
Dave,
smart?
If the music would have led to the baby faces getting the heat, or the heels getting the heat on them, then that's fine, okay?
Yeah,
but the music hit, the guy's distracted, and literally the spot was he gets cut off, and then he immediately slips out and gets back in control again. So it didn't even distract him.
He should have sold it longer. I do agree with that.
That's exactly correct.
I will agree with that.
He should have
sold it. He should have sold it.
Because otherwise it was a pointless distraction.
Yeah,
if you're going to distraction, the distraction has to lead to something. Not the guy just getting back in control again.
It led
who it distracted?
Who?
The fucking people.
Yeah.
The fans. It distracted the fans. They were into the match, and then suddenly, what's going on? And nothing's going on. Where were we? That's what it did.
Well, Jim, on that topic, real quick, we have a follow-up, apparently, that has been sent to us. This is from Wrestling Observer Live. No Dave Meltzer. Brian Alvarez with a wonderful guy, Mike Sempervive. Let's go to this.
You are on the air. Who is this and where are you calling from?
This is Michael from Rochester. Thank you, Brian and Mike, for taking my call. And I 100% agree with you about your points about AEW that you had at the beginning of the show. And I also heard the argument that you and Dynamite Dave had on the Wrestling Observer Radio the other night about the tag match on AEW Dynamite. And it feels like to me, as someone who has read Dave's stuff since the 90s and has listened to both of you guys for over 20 years, that ever since WWE has gotten better, basically since late 2022, that Dave has become much, much more of an insufferable jerk. And I listened to that argument, and you made, really solid points. And instead of, him just maybe disagreeing with you and moving on, he just went on and on and on. And I got to give you credit because I could never put up with that. And I feel like that Dave has just become more and more unhinged the more WWE gets better and better.
I don't think he's unhinged. I appreciate the call, but I don't want to...
Do me a favor, call him a solo show and say all those same things about Brian, because I agree with all of them.
Oh, how dare you. How dare you. See, the thing with that argument, I don't want to get into it here because I got into it on the board, is Dave is right that there is a template to booking certain things, okay? But he brings up, what's his name?
There's so many names.
Like Bill Watts, and they would have done it the exact same way.
Bookers,
Bookers in the past would have booked it the exact same way. Okay. And it's hold on a second, okay? If you have a template that Bill Watts used, okay, the idea that you can just do that for any group of people at any time, okay? If it were that easy, every company would have tons of stars. You just copy a template. But it's not about just the template. It's the right person in the right match at the right time. If you use the same template at the right place at the right time with the right people, it works. If you use that template in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people, it doesn't work. There's no template that is universally going to work. And that template didn't work for that tag match, I thought. Back in a moment. Observer Live.
Well, there it is, the from A to Z of that. I agree with Alvarez.
I can't wait to see the thumbnail of the non-working template. he with a sign around its neck, will not work for Tony.
Oh, back to Dynamite. Who did work for Tony?
Actually, we were up to MJF's working at that point when he came to the ring to almost silence. It's come to this. Eddie did the promo. Geriatric Jeff Jarrett just had to stay out of his way, but he wouldn't. So he got taught a lesson that this was not all elderly wrestling. But now with Jeff Jarrett out of the way, it's time to get the big burgundy balloon, or what are the triple B back? What was the big buffoonery belt? I don't know. The triple B, he wants his belt back. He's like El Gigante. He wants the belt.
I want the belt.
Nobody.
I want the belt.
I love the belt. I want the belt. And he started to say, because nobody is on the level of the devil. And Max Caster hits the ring and scares MJF from behind. Like, what the fuck? And he's hiding behind MJF while MJF is screaming at him, get out of my ring. What are you doing? Remember when Caster was running from, hold on.
Adam Page, Hangman.
Adam Page, but I'm just trying to, however far back, it was like fucking 30, 40 minutes ago. He's had time to run to fucking Marietta on foot, but he's just made it to the middle of the ring in a live national television show to try to get away from somebody that's chasing him. Let that sink in for a second.
Who he's bigger than. I actually would put money on Max Caster against Adam Page in a fight.
I don't know if I'd put money on either one of these fucking clowns at this point. Unless they were valet parking my car.
Certainly not in a race.
And then they play Adam Page's music. So apparently he chased Caster all the way to the goddamn gorilla position and then said, but wait, I can't follow unless you play my music. And he gets in the ring and gets nose to nose with MJF, and they exchange dirty looks, and then he goes out the other side and through the crowd after Caster. And then MJF starts picking back up with his promo. But now the fans are chanting, shut the fuck up. And they're bleeping or trying to bleep fuck when it comes up every 4 or 5 seconds or whatever it is. And he says, ain't nobody on the level. And Dustin Rhodes' music plays. And out comes Dustin to the ring with a microphone. And Dustin cut a hell of a fucking promo. It was at the end of this inanity, so I'm not sure whether anybody was still paying attention, but he told MJF off. He said, shut up. Look me in my eyes, you son of a bitch. You talked about Owen Hart. You've talked about people's wives. You've talked about people's drug problems. I was one of them that had drug problems. But I'm 16 years clean and sober. I crawled out of hell, Max, and you're not the devil. I'm better than you, and your bitch-ass frickin' knows it. And the people started chanting, Dustin, Dustin, because at least it was something to listen to, right? And then MJF starts answering, and I'm thinking, oh, no. And he starts making fun of it, and I'm thinking, that was too good. It was almost too good to have responded to without them just getting in a fight, and it was definitely too good to respond in a smirking fashion, too, because it just didn't. Did you feel a gear shift that wasn't called for there when Dustin was finished and MJF started again?
I mean, that's kind of what I expected here, but I see your point, and I don't disagree. I mean, it would have been, I don't know how you would have left it there. Would MJF have just left the ring?
Well, no, I mean, at some point, they either need to get physical or need to get separated or something, or some point needs to be made to get them away from each other. But MJF had to call Dustin a worthless drug addict and tear Dustin down. He's been living in daddy's shadow. And now he's in the shadow of you're in the shadow of your widow baby. And he's going to say, brother. And that's when Dustin nailed him. They have to go back and forth so long saying such horrible things to each other, and that your intensity with the people can only stay up so long but nevertheless, there comes the security, there comes the fight, the pull apart. And it was the best promo exchange that MJF has had in a while. And as they get them separated, then MJF runs back in and knees Dustin in the balls. And that's where, has it come to this that we want to see MJF against Dustin Rhodes, but it's more appealing than a lot of this shit.
I wish they had gone to Dustin instead of Jeff Jarrett. I think this exposed the Jeff Jarrett debacle. Dustin's all emotion. Like, there's nothing he could say that you don't just believe it's like completely emotional. And he has fire. Jeff was out there with like it was like monotone. It was like his dad saying it, these awful things to MJF.
Yeah, except when he tried to be Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah, that didn't work at all either. But Dustin, he immediately gets the crowd into it. You could argue that Dustin's been underused, misused, however you want to put it, for a while. He's currently one of the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions with Sammy Guevara. Why aren't they on this show? They're wrestling on a show with no TV show? Why aren't they on this show? Dustin Rhodes is still a name. Rhodes means something. On that topic, I want to ask you about a Twitter exchange, I should say. Jimmy Corderas, the referee.
Yes, longtime referee for the WWF/E and etc.
He tweeted out the other night, I don't have the exact time, "Great job, MJF, of reminding your audience about the man who was on top in the other company." To which MJF responded, "His brother, my mentor, a guy who helped shape me early in my career. Your old boss brainwashed you into believing we need to treat the fans like morons and pretend other wrestling companies don't exist. You dumb, ignorant, bald, grifting fuck."
Well, Jesus Christ.
Respectfully,
MJF.
So where do you fall on that argument? You can't ignore that Dustin's Cody's brother. That was one of the highlights of early AEW before they even had TV. Do you think it's bad form to talk about the WWE champion, one of the biggest stars in the industry, who's not going to be here anytime soon? Or do you think it works because of the history? Where do you fall on this?
Well, everybody knows who everybody is here in this, but what I was saying is, here's another point. The point where Dustin nailed MJF was when you're in the shadow of your widow, baby, and he didn't get to say brother. But that's worse than being in your father's shadow with Dusty having passed away and "don't you put my father's name in your mouth" type of thing. I just thought it was bad. And I think that with what Dustin had told MJF, the thing maybe for MJF to do, being a heel, was when Dustin had said, "I'm better than you and you know it, so or your punk bitch ass frickin' knows it," or whatever. Let MJF look like he's trying to cower down for a second, and then knee him in the balls. He's a heel. Did he have to come back with that material? And is it worse that Dustin is in the shadow? Could MJF beforehand have said, "You've never been as good as your brother, and now look at him and look at you. Don't talk about my brother. My brother's younger, my brother's more successful, and I love my brother. Well, what about your father?" And then there's different ways you could have constructed this where you don't have to hide that Cody is Dustin's brother.
I believe you have a mother, too.
Yes, and I believe, from what I understand, that someone comes over and cuts your grass once or twice a week.
From what I understand, you have other family.
Yes, there's people all over your home. It's constructed in an odd and unwieldy, and there wasn't a lot of flow to it. Dustin was fantastic.
Do you think...
That's what I thought.
What do you do about MJF right now? Because obviously he's at a point where it's almost like no matter what he does, he's kind of stuck in a trap. And he had been off TV for a while. The Jeff Jarrett thing did not work out however anyone thought it was going to work out. and the Adam Cole thing went on too long, and there's certainly a cooling off from the AEW fan base. What do you do?
I don't know. I really do not know, because nobody that has ever been that over with a fan base has suffered through this kind of booking for the past 2 fucking years, back and forth. There's a babyface, he's a heel. The last thing that was working was him and Adam Cole and the kangaroo kick. But is part of the reason he hadn't been able to come back from it because the kangaroo kick, was that like the jumping the shark? Was that his Fonzie moment? The whole bro chacho thing?
I don't think so, because at the time it was working, but I think the brochacho thing never ending. Well past the point where anyone wanted to see any of it or any of these people interact together ever again. I think that's the issue. There was a point where everyone was ready for MJF to kind of move on and do other things, and he got dragged back into that shit with Adam Cole for way too long.
Purgatory.
It did irreparable damage, I think, at this point. I mean, well, I shouldn't say irreparable, though. Time could always heal things. Another contract in another company can always heal things.
That's what we're waiting on right now, honestly, is I think, at some point, however long it takes, when he signs another contract with another company, that's when, because I don't know what they can do in this environment with the people they have access to do anything about this.
See, I think maybe some of these things with MJF, it would be a nice change of pace if they just got to it. If Dustin had hit the ring and within a minute just explained why he's fed up with MJF and what he's sick of hearing, and then it just went to action, or like you said, guys hit the ring and broke them up, it would leave you wanting to hear what the fuck's going to happen next week. Why did that happen so quick? What was said? It would leave you wanting more. I think some of these MJF segments have to leave you wanting more.
What about if MJF was just talking about somebody in the ring one night, and all of a sudden when he got to a certain point, that person just wandered out and headed to the ring, and MJF looked like, what the fuck? And the guy came in and said, no, I said, don't fucking say that. We sat back there and talked for 20 fucking minutes. I said, don't say that about my Aunt Susie. Fuck you. And they get in a fist fight. And then the story is MJF has gone too far. This guy's mad because Aunt Susie was supposed to be off limits, and they make a fucking promo, or they make an angle out of the goddamn promo becoming a shoot.
Yeah, see, MJF has to get to someone who's not going to stand in the corner and listen to the insults.
Fuck, if I wanted to stand mute and be insulted and browbeaten and called names, I didn't have to leave my own home. So what the fuck? They all do it.
Of course, Jim, they all do it. And what they all do...
Birds do it. Bees do it.
No.
Even the flowers in the trees do it.
I think if you look at an athlete like an MJF, or perhaps a Hurt Syndicate, or anyone else who looks like they lift weights in that company, protein is a key component of a weightlifter's lifestyle. I don't know what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we all need protein. All of us.
If you try to take care of yourself, if you want to make your flabby body look better, if you want to be, a fucking bright-eyed and bushy-tail type of individual, you need the proper nutrients and the calories and the proteins and all that stuff. You don't need the sugar and the carbs and the dreck and the processedness that they put in the foods and the drinks today, Brian, is what you're trying to say, aren't you?
There was an attempt. We all heard the attempt.
There was an attempt there.
Yes, that's right.
Well, and like the Hurt Syndicate, they consume a lot of protein. And I told you, Shelton Benjamin in his younger days, he could go to McDonald's and do the Big Mac and not work out. And he would but now, even he has to occasionally pick up a weight or watch his diet. And folks, all of you out there in the cult of Cornette and our various vast audience around the globe, well, look at the state of you guys. Holy shit, I've seen pictures of some of you, and you need fucking help. So the first thing you need to do is put down the chocolate milkshake and pick up an incredibly delicious and wonderfully tasting, good for you Orgain 30-gram protein shake, because they got 30 grams of protein and less than 1 gram of sugar. That's right. So you get all of the good stuff and none of the bad stuff. And as we mentioned, it tastes just like a chocolate milkshake without the ice cream, but you can add that. But that kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, there's no reason to add ice cream to the wonderful, delicious protein mix that is Orgain.
Well, what if you were talking to Colonel Sanders and you said there's no reason to add a pressure cooker to chicken? There'd be no KFC now, and people wouldn't be fat and diabetic and need protein shakes. But this is not one of those protein shakes that tastes like a man eating Fremunda cheese in a septic tank of a slaughterhouse, or it's not one of those chalky type of protein powders that you mix up. It comes right in its own little container there. And you just pop the top on it. Well, what is this? That it isn't plastic. It's a carton-like container filled with a liquid.
It is, and the liquid is in there. I suggest chilling it, put it in the fridge. That's what I do, and every morning.
Oh, well, yeah, we can't live like savages. You got to keep it cold.
I pop one of those after I work out. I feel great. My muscles feel great, and I'm ready for the day, ready with Orgain wonderful chocolatey protein.
Yes, and they also have the protein powders and bars and shakes and tons of other nutritional products. But, of course, since I'm not working out, I just go straight for the shot. Boom, take that. Well, there you go. And I've worked out for the day. But if you want more protein, folks, because after all, we're talking premium ultra-filtered protein with all 9 essential amino acids involved. So you can aid in your muscle support and recovery and maintaining your healthy lifestyle. 30-gram protein shakes. Go to Orgain, ORGAIN.com/Jim and use the code JIM, 30% off your order. So if you order 10 of them, then you're getting 3 of them for absolutely free. Or if you order 20, you're getting 6 or 30. If you order 1,000, my God, you're going to save enough money to pay off your house. So right now, Orgain.com/Jim, use the code JIM for 30% off your order. And all of the various parts of your body that likes protein will thank you for that.
Your body will thank you, as will we. Orgain, a wonderful friend of the show. Wonderful because it's delicious and I love it. Jim, one more time, what's that promo code?
Orgain.com/Jim. Use the code JIM, 30% off. Well, back to Dynamite. Before we lose track of where we were, it was time for Queen Waiata to face Toni Storm with Maria May on color. But there was a twist, Brian, because Toni Storm came out dressed like and acting like Maria May, licking various things and making the same movements and gyrations and things. And then after the match, which obviously went Toni Storm's way with Renee Moxley good in the ring, Toni did the promo like Maria. And because she was so incensed about this, Maria got up on the apron of the ring and then got down and took her belt and left. So we're going to have to wait until Grand Slam in Australia, the smaller arena from the larger stadium show, to see what's going to happen between these two. That was thrilling. I was on the edge of my seat.
This gives us a lot of hope for future feuds in the women's division. Toni Storm could just impersonate anyone she's going to feud with. You get at least 1 week of television out of that.
And it will be week television.
She did a good Mariah May. She kind of pointed out how easy it is to be Mariah May. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't just go out there and impersonate anyone. She nailed it. She got it right.
Maria May should have said, "It's not easy being me." And then she could have said, "Yes, it is."
She did a good job, too, at the desk with her facial expression selling, what the fuck am I seeing right now? She did a good job,
okay,
too.
I will admit that, Maria May is better with her facials. But nevertheless, then we move on.
Nevertheless. It's always the less.
It's always the less. There was more Chris Jericho nonsense with him doing the New York Minute and the promo, but suddenly in this one, here comes Powerhouse Hobbs, who has apparently not been cleared the last we heard, to wrestle, but he can come out and have big fights. But he came out, and here came the Outriggers, and they had a big brawl with Big Bill and Brian Keith, and here came the security, and it was a horrible, sloppy fight. But then they concentrated on Hobbs and Big Bill doing a grudge chokeslam duel where each one of them got a security guard on either side of the ring, but on the floor. And they shed these poor security guards. That one I can't remember which one went first, but one chokeslammed his guard. So then the other one said, well, I can do that too. And he picked him up and chokeslammed him harder on the floor. And then Hobbs and Big Bill get in a fight and go over the announce desk, and you can hear a fan yelled as they're scrambling in the wreckage of the desk and the chairs are being turned over, "You're gonna hurt each other." And then they knocked over the camera and went to black and went to break.
Is it wrong that I'm hoping that's how they write off Chris Jericho from wrestling?
No, going to black and going to break.
Just I think that's that would be,
yeah.
No, that's terrible.
But poor Hobbs.
Poor Big Bill. Hobbs. Poor Big Bill, too. You know what? Him having to do these stupid promos because Jericho told him this will be a great thing to build him up for the future. Get out of there. Go somewhere else.
All righty. And finally, the main event was Swerve Strickland versus Ricochet. And by the way, for one thing, I forgot this week to do my due diligence as a broadcaster and record the show that comes on after the show that we're supposed to talk about so that I can see the rest of the show we're supposed to talk about, which runs over for no good reason every week now. But I didn't record that, and I didn't feel motivated to go back and try, but I will make a couple of observations that I didn't give a shit about this match anyway, because Swerve is making his entrance, and halfway down the ramp, Ricochet comes from behind and whacks him with a chair. Boom. And this is the way we start the fucking thing. And then a second chair shot, and then a third chair shot. And rolls him in the ring and taunts him. And the referee asks Swerve, "You want me to ring the bell?" Swerve says, "Yeah," and he does. And then Ricochet hits a finish on the guy and gets a 2 count. And we're 5 minutes till 10. And then they go to the floor and they're doing a balancing act and a choreographed fight on the barricade. And then Swerve power bombs Ricochet onto the top of the barricade, which is like what looks like it's about a foot wide and no give. But then rolls him in the ring and they continue immediately. And Swerve boomerangs him into a metal buckle for a break spot. And when they went to the break, it was an AEW spot with all the action clips promoting their programming. So they broke into what they were showing us to promo what they were showing us. And they were still in break at 10 o'clock. So there you go.
Very postmodern. Very postmodern.
Yes, it was right on top of the whole thing. Yeah, let us not show you what you've never seen before that's going on live now. We want to take a break so that we can show you some canned shit that we've done previously. What happened in this, or do you know or care?
I think much like the audience, I didn't care. I saw it, but I was also falling asleep, and I don't remember. I just don't remember. And I didn't care enough to go back and check, and I'm sorry. But I didn't care enough to even do that.
Yeah.
So that was AEW Dynamite.
Anybody watch it?
I think Ricochet, the thing I like about Ricochet is he kind of walks around like, if you ever thought, like, what if there was a wrestler who's the illegitimate son of Billy Paul? Like, if you see him in the back, like, he looks so out of place. He just looks like a failed soul singer. Like, it's not working out for him.
Are they going to bring in Mrs. Jones for the DNA test?
They could bring in anyone. Swerve Strickland has really cooled off for him. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite ratings. I have them right here. AEW Dynamite, February 5th on TBS, 8 to 10:09 p.m.
Good Lord.
Was watched by 605,000 viewers on average.
Oh, wait a minute. That's last week's number, isn't it?
Last week's number, hold on, let me open up. WrestleNomics says last week was 604. So, although it's up, technically they're plus 0%. But -5 on the trailing 4-week average of 638. And of course, just as every single week since the beginning of the year, this does not include Max.
But now, wait a minute. Can they have 605? You got that trademark. They have to go back to 604.
Well, they can't land on it again next week or we're going to have a problem. One time is coincidence. Second time, you're fucking with my trademark. Yeah. No, but all kidding aside, no Max viewership. However, the numbers are exactly the same as they were before Max. It has had no effect on these numbers.
We got to get a mole in Max.
Well, Jim, let's go to the quarterly hours. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The Jay White Death Riders rated FTR angle, the Don Callis live promo, and the start of Will Ospreay versus Mark Davis. 763,000 viewers.
Okay, they're not starting in the 8s like they were for a while there, but that's a high enough number that I have a feeling we're going to see some level of attrition here over the course of the program.
Well, we go to quarter 2, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The continuation of Davis versus Ospreay with picture-in-picture ads. The Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, Don Callis family live angle. 694,000 viewers.
Okay, now to be quite honest, that is nowhere near the amount that they normally lose. That's only 69,000 people. So maybe all this chaos was keeping the people on the edge of their chairs, as they say.
Well, so far, first 2 quarters up on the 90-day trend, but quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The Swerve Strickland Ricochet recap, an ad break. The Hurt Syndicate Guns live angle, 632,000 viewers.
Ooh, so some people were just slow to do what they normally do every week in quarter 2 and didn't do it till quarter 3. Now they're down 131,000.
We go to quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The Harley Cameron Mercedes Moné backstage angle. An ad break with Puppet. The Adam Page Max Caster backstage angle. And the start of the Hounds of Hell versus Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. 571,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. And there's another 61,000. That brings us down to minus 192,000 people in the first hour.
Well, we go to the big 9 o'clock hour. Quarter 5, 9 to 9:15 p.m. The continuation of Hounds versus Takeshita and Fletcher with picture-in-picture ads. The Samoa Joe Hook Patriarchy backstage angle.
Fuck, I forgot about that. They went back and beat up some people in a very small locker room.
And Christian and Mama Wayne looked on and then went in to help after the good guys had left.
Yeah.
And the start of the MJF Live promo. 561,000 viewers.
They lost 10,000 at the top of the hour. Now they're down 202,000. It can't get much worse.
Well, we go to quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. The MJF, Max Caster, Hangman Adam Page, and finally Dustin Rhodes live angle, and an ad break during the entrances of the women's match coming up. 622,000 viewers.
Holy shit. So they picked up 61,000. To what do they attribute that?
And by the way, in the key demo, 9 o'clock hour, 216. This quarter, 247. So big pickup there, too. This whole quarter was the MJF Dustin thing.
Wow. Well, there you go. He's still got a little something.
We go now to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. Tony Storm versus Queen Aminata with picture-in-picture ads. The post-match with Mariah May, Dustin Rhodes' backstage promo, the Powerhouse Hobbs Big Bill recap, the Learning Tree Live promo, 571,000 viewers.
And they're right back where they started from.
Well, we go to
they lost everything they gained.
Well, we go to quarter 8. I remind you, we have a 9-minute overrun. 9:45 to 10 p.m., the Learning Tree, Outrunners, Powerhouse Hobbs live angle, an ad break, and the start of Ricochet versus Swerve Strickland with picture-in-picture. 501,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord.
9-minute overrun. Continuation of the match, 480,000 viewers.
They've killed poor Joe Schmo on at 10 o'clock.
You're talking about Swerve or the real Joe Schmo?
The show Joe Schmo. That now nobody's even tuning in to see Joe Schmo. They're like, oh, shit, we might catch that wrestling. That is the lowest overrun in the history of running over, isn't it, for them?
I would have to double check that, but it has to be in the running, I guess.
And the main event that was Swerve Strickland, who was the most over guy in the company several months ago, and Ricochet, who they treated when he first came in like he walked on water, and now that's the main event of a show that had lost 262,000 viewers. And it lost some more.
Well, and next week's a taped show, I believe, because they're traveling to Australia. So I think they're taping it on Tuesday for Wednesday. I could be mistaken, but I believe
that's right. And somebody on this show said next Tuesday. I'm trying to think of who it was. When they were trying to promote the thing, they said next Tuesday, when they're really going to do it instead of when it's going to air.
Well, wherever it airs, we will stay on top of whatever Fukakta numbers we get. Those were the AEW Dynamite ratings. Jim, let's get some questions here on the show. This question was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com by Jeff Pollard, Leesville, Louisiana. You know where that is, Leesville?
I'm thinking we may have run a spot show there once, but I could be mistaken.
With his classic matches with Ricky Steamboat and Terry Funk, was Ric Flair's 1989 the best year any wrestler has ever had in terms of in-ring output?
No. I mean, to be honest, as you can qualify that by saying as far as any wrestler, has had output that videotape still exists of those things. But I mean, Flair and Steamboat had house show matches that were in many cases as good as, the trilogy they had on the big shows that year. For Flair's television year, that may have been the best TV year that anybody had, but there have been wrestlers in the days, when everything wasn't recorded, where, including Flair himself, where he could have matched it or topped it. But I mean, I'm not taking anything away from those matches. It's just that, think of how many Ric Flair and Barry Windham matches weren't taped or televised, and do they think that the only three great ones they ever had were the Battle of the Belts and the Worldwide Show and the Crockett Cup? It just that those are the ones that people saw.
Do you think Flair in the ring was better at, I think he was 40 that year, right? 1989.
Yeah.
Than he was, let's say, in 85 or 86, where it wasn't just Wyndham, who he was wrestling regularly. It was Kerry Von Erich. It was other Von Erichs. It was people all over the place. If you think about it, he had classic matches in almost every territory he went to.
Yeah, I think anything from 80 to 90 with Flair, that was his, best period in the ring, where he had progressed enough to know what to do and how to do it and what was going to get over for him, and then still be young enough and in a place where they were using him properly, where he could still do it. So that was kind of the period of time. But no, I mean, there's been a lot of wrestlers that have had Dynamite Kid in fucking Calgary probably had a wonderful year for any normal human, but nobody, is alive that saw most of that these days. So it just depends on in what parameters you're
and stuff you've seen,
you're applying,
and stuff you've actually witnessed and seen as a fan, and then later on in the business. What's the best 1 year run you've seen someone have in the ring?
And again, are we talking quality of matches, or are we talking incredible box office?
We're talking quality. This is specifically about in-ring output. So, and okay, if we're looking at Flair's 89, you take box office out of the window anyway.
If you take, Dusty's 1974 and Lawler's 1974 and, et cetera, I hate to be less than humble, but the Midnight and the Fantastics had a string even better than the Midnight and the Rock and Roll, where the stuff in the matches in the ring were just not capable of most people following them. But at the same time, we didn't draw as much money with the Fantastics as we did with the Rock and Roll because it came after. But we had a lot of great matches with them for about 6 fucking straight months in WCW.
All right, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Corey in Atlanta. Hello, Jim and Brian. Love the podcast. I came across an interview stating Ole Anderson wrote in his book that the Steiner brothers killed the mystique of the Road Warriors. I would love to hear your opinion on this.
I can see... I've read Ole's book, and truthfully, I've read a lot of books, so I can't remember that one line in that 200-page book. But I can see him thinking that because the Steiners, the way Ole would have thought, the Road Warriors gimmick, the post-apocalyptic future, Mad Max and the Road Warrior and all that stuff, the spikes, the leather, the motorcycle, the whatever. And in here come a couple of fairly clean-cut, Scott was at the time, college kids, but they're jacked up to the point the Warriors are, and they're legitimate shooters, and they can move Hawk and Animal around, and for once, Hawk and Animal had to give somebody some ground, but the Steiners still looked like normal guys. They didn't work with the Warriors like Jack and Jerry Briscoe would have, smaller, more technical guys. They worked, smash mouth offense, as JR would say, right? Even with them physically. And that told people that, well, here's the Steiners, they're not normal people in terms of, you don't see people walking down a street like that, but they're college graduates or college athletes. These guys are supposed to be these fucking monsters, but kind of look the same. That may be where Ole was. Does that make any sense?
I think
maybe
so.
Not.
I think so. I mean, it was a weird time in 89 into early 90 because you had both of these teams. I mean, they met each other at Starrcade, that debacle.
I argued against that Iron Man and Iron Team tournament till I was blue in the face. And Herd was sold on making that an annual attraction. And that's the one annual time they ever did it.
Yeah, Muda was red in the face. He went home. But the Steiner brothers were kind of like the next generation of the Road Warriors. I mean, the Road Warriors were timeless in a sense, but they were also a product of their time. And they fit into the 1980s perfectly. The Steiners, in a lot of ways, the early 90s Steiners are kind of like the face of things to come, both in terms of what they're doing in the ring, but also just that kind of athlete. With the rise of UFC and everything, it's not a direct line, but the Steiners fit the 90s better than the Road Warriors did.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like when the Road Warriors met Bruiser and Crusher in Chicago. It was the end of one era and the beginning of another one, and the previous era didn't hold up well. But Bruiser and Crusher had 30 years, and whereas the Road Warriors only had fucking, 6 or 7.
And again, the Road Warriors had an interesting career because it was almost instant. Of course, Hawk wrestled some indies and indies. He wrestled for some territories, small territories in Canada and stuff. An Animal that had like a brief cup of coffee in Atlanta as the Road Warrior. Once they became the Road Warriors, they took off from there. They had not been in the business long. What would happen if two guys like that came along today? How long would they be in NXT? Would they get to NXT? Would guys like that get the opportunity they got today in any way?
No, because it was only by necessity only needed a heel tag team like now, because he had fired. Well, Matt Bourne had either been fired or taken off or whatever, and it was supposed to be Matt Bourne and Arn Anderson. And so he got these guys and pushed them to the moon because he had a hole he had to fill and the company was in need.
Holy Anderson.
Say it again?
He said he had a hole he had to fill. Holy Anderson.
Oh, for heaven's sake. But the point is, no, they wouldn't, because on any level now that people would see on any kind of widespread basis, you know, they've already got way too many guys. They don't need to bring anybody in as an emergency and let's just push them tomorrow. They've never wrestled. We don't care. We're desperate. And if it was anybody, Hawk and Animal succeeded where that was tried a number of different times in a number of different places in wrestling in the 80s. The big muscle guy, push him to the moon, have guys bump off of him, whatever, try to get him over face paint. They're the ones that really got over. The other ones, even if whether they were imitations of the Road Warriors or not in the fans' minds, they still weren't Mike and Joe. Those two guys did something with that gimmick, and they grew into, they didn't become goddamn Johnny Saint, but they grew into it enough to be able to work and do the gimmick and not kill everybody instead of fucking killing everybody. Poor Dennis Condrey. That was the last year that the Road Warriors, 1986, were really just fucking brutal in the ring. And then they started picking it up. So Stan came in right about the time they learned to work. Dennis had a lot of the brunt of the greenness.
So did Stan. Him and Steve in the AWA working with those two?
Oh, well, yes. Stan had already gone through it in 1985. We don't like the finish. We're not going for it. Do it our way and nobody gets hurt.
Well, is it a story that Steve Kern's response, because he didn't hear them, was what? And then as soon as
it was like, what? Kern had a thing that he would do where he would just wander around in the ring during the introductions. He's kicking the mat and wiping his boots, and he's looking at girls in the front row. And that's when they went up to the meet in the middle for the referee's instructions, they didn't like the finish that Vern had given him, or whoever Vern's representative was. We're not going for the finish. Do it our way and nobody gets hurt. And Kern looked up and said, what? Like, that didn't register. And they just fucking hauled off and jumped him. Whoom, whoom, whoom. And Stan's like, God damn it. I'm not involved in this. Whatever you want to
do. You know, and one last thing on this. Everyone brings up Demolition as being a Road Warriors ripoff. To a WWF fan, it didn't feel that way. The Powers of Pain, it absolutely felt that way.
Yeah.
When Warlord and Barbarian showed up as baby faces with their babyface manager, the Baron, in a hood, it felt like they were trying to fool people into thinking they were the Road Warriors.
Yeah, and I can see that, and they weren't trying to fool people into thinking they were. They were just trying to take the gimmick and, you know, put it on somebody that they had and could, in all honesty, pay less money to, because Hawk and Animal and Ellering at that point had gotten a certain cachet in the industry where they could demand some big money places. And, well, we've told a story. Dusty put Warlord and Barbarian, the Powers of Pain, together to do an angle against the Road Warriors, and then I guess went out of his mind trying to hotshot everything in the summer of '88 and wanted them to do scaffold matches at the bashes. And that's when Warlord and Barbarian said, fuck. And they gave their notice and went to the WWF. Because neither one of those guys were going to be taking a fucking 20-foot drop. Even if they landed on their feet, they were 325 pounds apiece.
Well, Jim, you know, a lot of people, when they think of the Road Warriors, they think of the hairdos. But an underrated part of the look was the facial hair. The Fu Manchu mustache, which is almost hidden by the paint. But they have to spend a lot of time, and I have to imagine it must have been hard on the road in the 80s, grooming their face. If only they had a friend with a service like Harry's.
Well, that's right, because not only the grooming of the face, but the grooming of the head, because they had the stripes, the mohawk stripes, and they had the sideburns and the mutton chops and all those various forms of hair patches, and you ought to have seen the inside of their ears. And Harry's can help you out with all that stuff. You can just take and draw a circle around your head. And our friends at Harry's have the razor and the gel and all the good smelling stuff and the deodorants and everything where you can remove hair where you don't want it. You can make things smell good and feel soft. And I don't know if they have a thing that'll put hair on where you want it and don't have it. But I would bet you if you got on Harrys.com, that's Harrys, Harrys.com, and looked at maybe they've got some hair glue and maybe, people donate hair for charitable causes. Maybe they can sell you some bulk hair and you can glue some back on different places. But you can definitely take it off. That's no problem at all. And you're right, Brian, sometimes you wouldn't have a mirror in a locker room because you wouldn't have a locker room back in those days. You might be in a broom closet, or you might be in a boiler room. You might be trying to look at a shiny metal cabinet to get some kind of reflection so you could shave. Well, Harry's helps you out because they've got the 5-blade razor with the German engineered blades. Not only do these German blades stay sharp longer and give you a smoother shave, but they will not talk under interrogation. All they say is, I know nothing. I see nothing. And they've got the foaming shave gel.
Yes.
So you can foam that up and spread it all over you. And be careful now, because don't put it anywhere you don't want to shave your hair off, because it feels so good shaving with this fine razor.
Again, we're not talking about hair. We're talking about facial hair. We're talking specifically about the face.
The hair on your face or your sideburns or even the top of your head. You can use that too.
Again, let's not worry about the top of your head. Let's worry about the grooming of the face with Harry's.
In your face, part of your head, it just depends on what side you're on. But all over your body, you've got places that might need some attention, and Harry's can give you the best attention to your face and your chin and your cheeks and your sideburns and behind your ears, too. That's another place where hair grows. But they've got, and I'll tell you what now, they've got a trial set. If you don't believe me, and I'm the soul of probity and also the picture of honesty, but if you don't believe me, you can try all of the Harry's razor and weighted handle and foaming shave gel and travel cover so you don't slice your fingers off. And you don't have to pay the normal price for the trial set, $13. You can get it for $3 at harrys.com/JCE. Again, the trial set comes with the razor, the handle, the foaming shave gel, and the travel cover. And that way you can get an idea of how wonderful it feels to glide this thing around your face. Just be careful when you're going up under your nose. You don't want to stick it too far up your nostril. But right now, the highest customer satisfaction of the shaving industry is waiting on you. A no-risk trial. Don't like your shave? No worries, it's on them. And you've got a convenient subscription option that you can cancel at any time, but you can schedule refills for as low as $2. Have you paid the big money for that stuff in the stores these days? I think not. Anyway, try it out for yourself and see how wonderful you will feel. Harrys.com/JCE, the $13 trial set for $3.
That's right. Get your face smooth and kissable with Harry's. One more time, Jim, what's that promo code?
Well, now it depends on who you're talking to as whether you're going to get kissed or not.
What's that?
You might get slapped.
Valentine's Day is approaching. What's that promo code, Jim?
Well, I guess you should then shave some of the weeds off. Harrys.com/JCE.
All right. Well, let's get ready for our final section of the show. Hold on. You know what that means?
That sounded ominous.
That means we are ready for the final portion of the show, the airing of the grievances.
Uh-oh.
No, let's get a few more questions and a few more things here. Jim, this email was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com by Scott Edis, Nottingham, UK. Jim and Brian, don't know what they are feeding the talent over there in Tonyland, but this is the best one yet. Does he really believe what he is saying? Jim, you know him. Is he really this delusional? I have an article here.
I need to have some details here.
The article is from Wrestling News Source, established 2006, whoever this may be. Chris Jericho responds to please retire chants and reflects on AEW's biggest feuds. Apparently he did an interview with Chris Van Vliet on the fan perception of the Jericho Vortex. Here's a quote. It's funny how I've become public enemy number one as a heel, by the way. Isn't that kind of the idea? Aren't you supposed to be public enemy number one as a heel? Aren't you supposed to not like somebody's character when that character is a heel? Maybe I'm actually smarter than everyone.
Oh boy.
And I'm manipulating people to what I want them to do. Well, fuck off. Just retire already. It's like, okay, doesn't that make you mad? According to the article here, Jericho pointed to his strong TV ratings, adding...
What? He's just on a show that lost 250,000 fucking viewers.
What I look at is the ratings. And 9 times out of 10, my segments always go up. And they're still some of the biggest ones on the show. So that tells me that whatever it is I'm doing is working. I'm a bad guy on the show.
We just went over the ratings. Were any of the segments that he was in up from the previous segment? I thought that was only MJF and Farquhar.
Well, first of all, we do the ratings every week, and if there was a big jump for a Jericho segment, we would point it out. We've joked about the fact that he's no demo god any longer. He hasn't really done on AEW TV too much beyond these short comedy segments, the New York Minute. It's not even a full segment usually. Now it was this week, and the rating went down. And then he killed the next segment. That's the thing we always talked about. Every Jericho segment was so bad it would kill the next segment. But I guess he's saying that his segments are up. That's not the way I remember it. But the idea that he's a heel and that please retire chants are a good thing for a heel to get. What do you think of that?
No. Because the please retire chants that were directed at him were like, we don't want to see more of this. The things that you're doing are not pleasing us. It's not like booing. Nobody's chanting, please retire at Dominic Mysterio. Nobody's chanting, please retire at Solo Sikoa.
It's not a chant you hear very often, actually, ever.
No, and not the heels that are drawing money today in the wrestling industry or are being featured and are very heelish in nature are nobody's saying, please retire. They're just booing them. Because they're bad guys, not bad performers.
Well, let's go back to some of the quotes here in this article. The so-called Jericho Vortex. I always loved the concept of the Jericho Vortex. I think that was our concept, by the way. Thank you, Chris.
Trademarked it.
And how anybody that works with me gets dragged down. Name one person that got dragged down from working with me. Maybe afterwards they don't go higher. But that's not up to me. I'm not in charge of booking the entire company. So now he's throwing Tony under the bus.
Yeah, I do the best I can, but as soon as they're out of my hands, Tony's going to kill him again.
According to the article here, he gave credit to the wrestlers he's worked with, pointing out how people like MJF, Sammy Guevara, and Danny Garcia.
Oh, now, wait a minute. So MJF is colder than he's ever been. Sammy Guevara is not allowed on mainstream television, and Danny Garcia has been pushed down our throats and is yet to sell, 15 cents in Chinese money worth of tickets.
And by the way, where is he? Is he on Collision? Is that why we haven't seen him on Dynamite? Not that I'm asking for more Daniel Garcia.
I didn't want to stir anything up while everything was going smoothly.
Here's another quote from Jericho. I think Big Bill and Brian Keith have grown by leaps and bounds from working here with me. I'm not going to go through the entire cast of characters, but I definitely know what my intentions are, and it's not to bury anybody. It's to build as many people as I can and give them the experience so that they can learn how to start shouldering things on their own. Let's stop there.
He's a very beneficent man.
Even if his intentions are right, the problem again goes back to the execution. If your idea was, I'm going to elevate Daniel Garcia and Anna Jay and Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, you did a comedy angle where they were doing fake sounding promos that didn't get over. That's not how you help talent, by having them be the ancillary characters in your bad comedy segments. So, any thoughts on that?
Yes, I agree with you. It's so sick. When you're not only doing the silliness, but you're changing your shit all the time, trying to stay ahead of the fucking law, and you keep drawing these underneath guys in to be the stooges around your Ted Healy, it's not doing anything for him. He put Action Andretti over. Where's he? He never got any other push ever again. He just did it so that he could say, look, I'm putting the young guys over.
No, then we saw him with Leo Rush a few months back wearing big coats, and we said, oh, what are they doing? And then we never saw them again.
Yeah. But that's the thing with Chris. You can't just take these young guys that, he'd be a funny sidekick for whatever reason, and put them in a group like that and expect they're going to be learning at the highest level of what goes on in the wrestling business. I'm sorry.
Jericho revealed that while he might suggest opponents, it's primarily AEW President Tony Khan who decides who Jericho works with. Quote, I don't choose anything. I might have a suggestion, but most of the time it's Tony coming up with who he wants me to work with. He gave the example of his feud with Mark Briscoe, explaining, both of us wanted to work with each other and knew we could have some great matches. I loved working with Mark, and what a great kind of mini feud. Or, I guess it was a feud. It was a couple of months long, so that was something that we both wanted to do and suggested to Tony. But most of the time, this whole thing that started working with Rated FTR, that was Tony's idea. So yeah, I still work for my boss, and I have never once, as far as I can remember, in the 6 years I have been in AEW, ever said no to something. So let's stop there. Should Jericho say no?
Oh boy, yeah. If this is the result of him not saying no, yeah, I think he should be a little fucking stingier with his time and attention.
Finally, Jericho also addressed the infamous please retire chants. When they were really at their peak, of course I'm always thinking, okay, I could make a t-shirt out of that. I could make a whole angle out of this. He noted the chants eventually faded away, recalling how he would use his microphone skills to shut them down. New York, please retire. I take the mic and say, I know why you want me to retire. Because you want me to go pitch for the New York Yankees so they could possibly win a World Series. But that's not going to happen. Boo! And they stop. That's delusional. Now, finally here, Jericho tied it back to comedy, quoting Seinfeld. It's something that Seinfeld said years ago, or any great stand-up comedian. I've got the mic. You can't heckle somebody when the guy has the louder voice. So yeah, the please retire was a good one. That was fun. Is this whole thing just him trying to talk around?
Him trying to talk people out of doing it because it's not getting to him.
And it's absolutely getting to him.
Yes.
How delusional is Chris Jericho? The problem is his instincts, but beyond that, his desire for wrestling fans, especially smart fans, to see him a certain way. That's why he's out there dissecting this like Quentin Tarantino doing a director's commentary of one of his things. You know what I mean? He always wants people to think that he's a thinker. But when you look at the thoughts and the execution, you question if there's a brain.
So you're saying he's not as much of a thinker as he is a stinker?
He may be a stinker. Any final thoughts on Chris Jericho's role in AEW?
I wish I had some final thoughts on Chris Jericho's role in AEW. I wish we could put a nice bow on it and wrap it up. No, I mean, he's got to do something because Tony's got him for what, 7 more years? Wasn't that a 10-year contract 2 or 3 years ago? We said he'd be 64 or whatever by the time it's done. So he's got to keep fucking fresh on this thing for Tony.
Well, Jim, our next question was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by James Sutter. How were botches treated by promoters back in the day?
What now?
How were botches treated by promoters back in the day when there was a botch?
Well, I mean, what, like somebody fucked up a hip toss or what, that kind of botch?
I guess you could have a couple different options, either that or something that is booked to do something and the guys don't, I guess they botch it up. Any examples?
Well, that's so wide ranging. There was always shit that didn't work in a match because especially in the days when it was, called on the fly at the time and you just tried to cover it up. But there weren't like, I remember going to the matches as a fan and going weeks and weeks and weeks of the weekly cards with 5, 6, 7 matches on them and not seeing people try to do something that just totally collapsed, like trying to do 2 people something off the top rope and everybody just fell off of it, or just something that just completely fell to shit past one move falling apart or missing or whatever. And there's been all kinds of things go wrong in angles that you did on TV or fucking fights or whatever, but you cover them up and go on. In those days, there weren't, to answer his question, the promoters dealing with botches, unless you went out and completely fucked up the angle and missed a guy with a chair or something was obviously fake and was going to kill the town if you aired it on TV or whatever. Different promoters would yell at you for different levels of shit. But I never even heard Bill Watts say, God damn it, you fucked up the elbow drop or whatever. It might be, oh, Jesus Christ, you lost the gimmick and didn't fucking knock him out with the knucks or something like that. But
did he say anything after the Wrestling 2 JYD thing? The knee lift?
Oh, well, yeah, that type of botch where it's something that looks phony and is going to hurt business or hurt the town or whatever. That, type of thing, promoters would always fucking be upset about. And depending on which one of them it was, they would yell in their own particular style. Jerry Jarrett wouldn't yell at you, he'd just starve you out and fucking make sure you didn't have enough money to fucking live there, so you had to go find another job. Whereas Watts would have grabbed your bag and thrown it out in the parking lot directly. But, there was not these intricate shop class projects full of, tables and chairs, structures being built, or elaborate 4 and 5 man fucking moves being pulled off at the same time and dives off the balcony. So it wasn't so obvious when somebody just completely fucked up what they were trying to do.
Hey, I know I don't have the video footage in front of you, but there's a match that people have been sending around this last few days, and several wanted to know your thoughts on it. Maybe
yes.
Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert tag team match in the studio at TBS?
Yes, against Big Bear Collie, and I can't remember who his partner was. But and part of it is because I haven't seen the whole match. That was 1989 or whatever. I haven't seen the whole match in a long time, but I think Ron Simmons had done something to poor old Big Bear Collie that rang his bell. And then they kept trying to continue, but at one point, Ron shoots him off and he fucking hits the ropes, but goes under the top rope, almost falls through. And then Eddie tries to hot shot him, but he trips on the drop down over Ron Simmons and just falls on top of Eddie. And fucking, then they try to do something. Finally, they threw him out on the floor and Eddie was going to give him like a suplex on the floor and he couldn't go up for that. So it turned into like a super DDT. And again, the job guys that came to Atlanta TV in those days were not all the highest quality, most, extensively trained workers. A lot of them were the guys Mike Jackson smartened up how to write a check, and he'd get them booked and take 25% of their money or whatever. But, that's why we had funnier matches when that wasn't really the Midnight Express being weaved, when that wasn't really the thing to do, because you couldn't have serious matches with these guys, so you had to be heelish and make fun of them and demean them. But when things, and we never hurt anybody either. But when the guys tried to do too much stuff with them, and the guys that they were doing it with couldn't take it, couldn't go upright, didn't know how to take the bump, whatever, they'd fucking hurt them or land on their head, or it would all just turn to shit. And that turned to shit there. That's what that clip is from. But in fairness to Big Bear, I think Ron had already knocked him goofy before that clip started.
Well, Jim, let's get another question here. This was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Adam Meyer. Who does Jim think is the unluckiest wrestler ever? Between bad gimmicks, stop-start booking, injuries, real life hitting them exceptionally hard, or just being born in the wrong era? Who was one or two bounces going their way from being a much bigger star?
Oh, good Lord. That's completely out of the blue. I mean, to ascribe the all-time champion of that, I don't know, because remember, there's been some guys here over the past few years since we've been watching that had some really rotten gimmicks. The jury may still be out on them as to whether they're ever going to make it, but trying to go back in history, boy, oh, God damn it. Poor Earthquake, when he left the WWF, he was a shark. He was the whatever. He had a lot of bad gimmicks in WCW. They gave Big Bubba a lot of bad gimmicks in WCW, but they had already made it originally, and then it was just a trademark infringement problem where they had to change. Who had a series of bad gimmicks and never got anywhere?
Well, even beyond gimmicks, a wrestler who...
Or bad booking or
was
bad
unlucky.
Whatever.
Just unlucky. I mean, it can't be someone who just did damage to their own career, through drugs or alcohol or anything else, but just someone who the luck never worked out for.
Well, Troy Graham, the Dream Machine, we talked about it all those years. He was in the business for 8 years, making almost no money. He had a good run in Memphis, but never got the big spot. And finally, when he was going to go to Louisiana, Mid-South, and as part of the Bruise Brothers, he broke his ankle and never really recovered his career from that. We were just talking about that. That was pretty, and he went through all kinds of gimmicks. He was Troy T. Tyler. He was Troy Graham, Troy Hippie Graham, the Dream Machine. With a mask on, the Dream Machine unmasked, the Bruise Brothers. He was Dr. Troy Graham in a wheelchair after he broke his ankle as the manager of the interns. And he was one fucking good break away, and then he had a bad break.
Well, Jim, that's where we'll call it a day here today. Again, we wanted to have some from the files and a song or two, but
we need to hear feedback from the listeners on our new setup and how it's progressing. And that at least my shit works quicker. Even if it sounds the same, it works quicker. So it's less stress for me.
Well, progressing is the right word. This is a work in progress, so bear with us as we deal with all this. But
geez, a work in progress. So is the fucking pyramid. How long is this going to take us to progress?
The experience in a few days, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And next week, right back here on the Drive-Thru for more fun and hilarity. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Subscribe today. Patreon.com/Cornette. For the archive, $5 a month. He's Jim. I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!